Don't miss the awesome Naruto stories my sister creates. Her last channel was hacked, so to stay in the loop, please subscribe to her new channel. It would mean a lot to her, and you won't regret it. Dear Naruto Lemon fans, I'm inviting all of you to my Boosty channel. You know that YouTube doesn't exactly approve of this kind of content, so please subscribe to my paid subscription and enjoy Naruto Lemon scenes comfortably. There are different subscription tiers from Mini Lemon to God Lemon. Those who buy the over Naruto Lemon and God Naruto Lemon, I'll mentions in the videos. Dare. Therefore, she was highly regarded in Kumo, and for the same reason, Kudo was afraid that his head would fly as soon as this girl was harmed. Now they successfully played the role of bodyguards, gradually receiving all the information from the feudal lord. The latest news was especially important, judging by the words of the informant himself. Being in his room, which was opposite Mabui's room and 3 steps from the feudal lord's room, he almost fell asleep. When the roar of an explosion made sleep instantly disappear from his red eyes from lack of sleep. Jumping out of bed, he ran into the corridor, where he was met by the same sleepy Mabui. Who could it be? Mabui asked. Do I look like a censor? The man snapped. The explosion was strong. So it's an attack? Or something different? I have to check, but the feudal lord. Protect the feudal lord. Kudo shouted to her, and then hurried to the site of the explosion. The left wing of the estate was damaged, but the lack of smell from the exploding materials made it clear. Kiba Kufyada. Realizing that the explosion was just a distraction, Sakurai ran back at top speed. Having removed the signal seal from the window, I seal the window itself. After which I go inside. At first glance, there was no one, but the feeling of darkness cannot be fooled. Someone, apparently Sato himself, was hiding behind a special wall. There is no time. The hidden wall was a separate object, which I sealed. Screaming in surprise, the plump man tried to escape, but he received a couple of senbon, which sent him to the kingdom of Morpheus. And what? I can't drag it on one thing. So I bought a few necessary things. To be on the safe side, I attached a paralysis seal to my clothes. He was, of course, put to sleep, but why create problems for myself? I throw the man behind my back and quickly leave the room. I would have left if the shurikens hadn't stopped me. Having dodged them, I notice a pretty girl, apparently also a teenager. Sending her a smile, I jump out of the window, accompanied by kunai flying behind me. Another shinobi appeared behind the girl, apparently a jonin. Speeding up, I head into the forest. Kudo jumped furiously from one tree to another, chasing the kidnapper. He was carrying a far from light, well-fed man, so it was not surprising that they were catching up with him. Deciding that the time had come, Sakurai gestured to Mabui. She nodded, and then began to make seals with lightning speed. A second later, a huge ball of lightning rushed towards the figure in black clothes and a mask of the same color. He managed to dodge at the last moment, but Kudo was only happy, since this slowdown was enough for them to catch up with him. He won't be able to fight normally, the jounin thought, before freezing in surprise. The figure in black clothes picked up a scroll, after which the feudal lord disappeared with a pop. A moment's hesitation was enough for the kidnapper to attack. Shurikens rushed towards him from open palms, while the shinobi himself approached him with the intention of engaging in close combat. One exchange of blows was enough for Kudo to understand that the enemy was not a master of taijutsu. But the blows, even the fastest and most unexpected, did not hit the enemy. He dodged as if he was predicting what the enemy would do next time. Sakurai also noticed that gradually the movements of the unknown shinobi began to resemble his own, until they began to copy them altogether. This is, the famous Sharingan, so after all Konoha? How did she know about this? Kudo was in a panic. If Leaf finds out that Cloud is conducting his business against Konohagakure no Sato in the country of tea, then the weakened country of lightning will fall very quickly, because then Konoha will have reasons for war with Kumo that will satisfy the other three great countries. Jumping back, Kudo made a strange gesture, which Mabui, however, understood. Pulling out the scroll, she concentrated and then it disappeared in a yellow flash. Ready, she gestured. Kudo had difficulty dodging the enemy's senbons, kunai, and shuriken, which he sent with enviable consistency. Having clashed with him in a new battle, Kudo had to admit that he was barely able to land one blow, and then only tangentially. This confirmed that the enemy was an Uchiha. Suddenly, the shinobi instantly switched to Mabui, who was breathing heavily after the technique. She, almost getting hit by a kunai, dodged and then took the kick on a hard block. Kudo hurried to her rescue when he suddenly noticed that Mabui had already fallen. A senbon was sticking out of her neck. The next moment she also disappeared into a similar scroll. Deciding not to give in to his emotions, Kudo sent several kunai at the enemy, after which, taking advantage of the fact that he was busy dodging, he quickly made seals. Smoke appeared, from which a large, almost 2-meter lizard jumped out. Summoning? Tatsuya stared at the lizard in surprise, and this moment was enough for the reptile to grab his leg. Howling in pain, the guy jumped to the side, noticing a rather large laceration on his ankle. A jonin instantly appeared behind him, trying to strike. Tatsuya, in a panic, turned on the aura of darkness, forcing the enemy to remember the most terrible memories. He woke up quickly, only 2 seconds, but this was enough for Tatsuya to deliver the decisive blow. Here, Kudo thought with despair, seeing a seal similar to a tattoo on his hand. Cats! Tatsuya shouted, after which Sakurai was slammed into a tree from the explosion that thundered on his hand. Having inserted a senbon with a sleeping pill, Tatsuya also placed a paralysis seal on the jonin's chest, noting that he had lost an arm up to the elbow. Well, the task is almost completed. All that remains is to bring the fat man to Shijo. Sighing, Uzumaki sealed the jonin as well, after which he jumped onto a tree and rushed to the meeting place. Moving through the forest, I finally reached Degarashi. The place where Shijo and I usually agreed was now occupied by someone who was not the mayor of the city at all. Although he won't hang around here all day, waiting for me. It is logical that he sent a subordinate. And it seems to me that I know this aura. Sawada Yuchi was annoyed that he was taken away from his training and forced to stand in the forest, waiting for the Fuin master. This time not to receive the next batch of seals, but to show him the location of the new underground building. Yuchi sincerely did not understand, why give a stranger, albeit an unusual one, knowledge about a secret place. The mayor of the city was not stupid, so Sawada was rather annoyed that he was not privy to this. Yuchi quickly jumped to the side when he saw a kunai flying towards the conference table standing alone in the middle of the path. Noticing the leaf on the kunai, the chunin ran even further, expecting an explosion. But no, there was no explosion. Expecting an attack, Yuchi began to use the technique, but a large inscription on the sheet forced him to cancel the harm to nature with elemental jutsu. The inscription, completed, was written in regular ink, and there were no hidden fuins on the piece of paper, at least the chunin hoped so. But it was precisely this message that he had to wait for in order to understand that the mission, whatever it was, had been completed. Tatsuya-san, Iwata-sama asked to take you to a certain place, Yuchi said, looking in the direction where the kunai came from. A second later, a tall, dark-haired boy, who was the one who had trapped him in the past, jumped out from behind the trees. And where? Iwata-sama said there's no need to worry. Lead. Chunin led me to a strange place underground. A dungeon, or something like it, was built not far from our meeting place, and the long descent made it clear that the place was deep. Is it possible that this is a trap? Just in case, I checked the contents of my seals containing throwing iron. After this fight, I, of course, collected the sent kunai, shuriken and senbon. But in any case there was no part. So, there were 5 people in one of the rooms. 4 shinobi and 1 human. Shijo? The Chunin led me to this exact room, which was the size of a small gym. In the center, at a wooden table, Shijo himself sat, peacefully sipping tea, although before that I had only seen him smoking. Oh, Tatsuya. I have to admit, I expected you to come back later. Although I won't make a scene, I was waiting for you. Shijo waved his hand at the chair opposite. Sitting down on him, I looked at his face expectantly. Don't be so tense, he said after a minute of silence. To this I just raised 4 fingers. Shijo looked at me blankly, but then realized. Everyone come out. 2 immediately left, but those who stood in the shadows lingered. That's it, he repeated again. And then the others came out. That's it, now we can talk. The task is completed, Shijo-san. How? More humane, of course, grinning, I take out a scroll with a sealed feudal lord. Iwata looked at the scroll in surprise. Is he alive? Yes. Fine. How to print it? Shijo said in such a tone as if he was unsealing not a person, but new furniture. Just give me some chakra. As with a regular seal. About the task. Are there any complications? Meta Jounin. And? The mayor frowned. As you can see, I am alive and well. Were you able to eliminate the Jounin? Shijo stared at me in shock. Yes, he clearly did not expect this from a 14-year-old boy. And yet I will not admit that both the Jounin and his teammate are alive. They might come in handy. Yes, I lied, making my face as serious as possible. Shijo looked at me for a long time, then sighed. Okay. Now, about your reward, the notification beeped, but I ignored it, staring at the money. 800,000 Ryo for bringing him back alive. For a Jounin, 200,000 Ryo, he said, handing me the money, which I immediately sealed. By the way, Tatsuya. Yes? How do you like this place? You mean this dungeon? A good place. We used your seals to build it. And yes, I wanted to suggest, maybe you could make this place your workshop. It's inconvenient to create seals in the forest, and you'll be closer to the city. Wait. So you want to give me this dungeon? For free? Well, of course. It will also be convenient for me if my business partner goes about his business without problems. And it's not that expensive, so don't worry. Exactly? I asked doubtfully. It's not every day that they give you real estate for free. Even though I completed one task, but giving a basement near the city to an unknown shinobi for an unknown purpose, this is at least unreasonable. Shijo extended his muscular arm for a handshake. When I held out mine, he grabbed it tightly. I hope you will help me out sometimes, Tatsuya. Sometimes there are tasks that must be completed urgently, and where there are just not enough people like you. I have a choice. Of course. Cha no Kuni is not Gakurazato, and I am not Kage. This is not an order, but a request. Then I agree, we released the handshake, after which Shijo and his subordinates left my dungeon. I think it's time to see what kind of notification I received. Attention. Quest. Elimination. Goal. Find Sato Yoshiro, completed. Bring Sato Yoshiro to the mayor of Degarashi, completed. Reward. Plus 4,000 experience points, received. 800,000 Ryo, received. 200,000 Ryo, received. Plus 20,000 experience points, received. Oh, what goodies. Okay, it's time to check the status. Name, Tatsuya Uzumaki. Race, human, shinobi. Affiliation, Uzumaki. Level, 25. Strength, 62. Dexterity, 73. Endurance, 113. Wisdom, 100. Intelligence, 103. Chakra, 67. Control, 52. Luck, 23. Will, 23. Free points, 25. Achievements. Heir Uzumaki. The last of the might. Uzumaki. Attention. Level 2 dungeon unlocked. Level 3 dungeon unlocked. Level 4 dungeon unlocked. Level 5 dungeon unlocked. 4 dungeons at once for the 25th level? Isn't it too much? Although, why am I indignant? Having decided to check out the new dungeons later, I begin the tedious process of relocation. There were a lot of seals left in the forest camp, and the protection there was too good to just leave it like that. Therefore, having reached my former, although it was the current one just a few tens of minutes ago, place of residence, I create clones and begin to take out the necessary things. By evening everything was ready, and, having made a protective barrier around the entrance to the dungeon, I entered my new workshop. The huge hall gradually began to acquire new furniture. Tables, chairs, cabinets, all this was bought in the city. Fortunately there was money now. The underground, water-to-mouth building, as I called it, was a rather large place. One huge hall and a dozen smaller rooms intended for living. Shijo probably decided that I would soon need help, so he crammed in a dozen extra rooms. Oh, by the way, I finally replaced my tired sleeping bag with a bed. Huge double bed. Some people are showing off. After the arrangement, which lasted until 3 o'clock in the morning, and only thanks to the clones, I decided to check how my prisoners were doing. We won't open the beauty for now, but it's worth checking out the Jonin. I need his techniques, and to get them, I have to break him. So, stop, what? I almost jumped at the last thought. What kind of break? Why did I decide to be so cruel? Come to think of it. I didn't react when I killed the first time. I didn't see any nausea or anything disgusting in it. I simply took the life of a person. A cold wave set my mind straight when I almost started to go hysterical. Past. So what if I killed? Should I also complain about the fact that I didn't puke then? Even if this is abnormal, you can't save your clan, especially Kushina, with normality. I am aware of the world I find myself in, right? Sighing, he unsealed the Jonin. He lost consciousness from the shock of pain in his hand torn by the explosion, and was also paralyzed by the seal. The poor guy probably didn't expect that the end of work in an ordinary country without Gakurazato would be so sad. But, unfortunately, I need to check some points in my abilities. Yamaton. The rarest genome, I hope so. All these powers related to darkness are an anomaly, aren't they? Sensing darkness in other people. Influencing them with the help of darkness. It's incredibly scary, even if it's my power. After all, I feel not chakra, and not Kirakuki, but precisely the darkness in a person. I watch how the palm touches the Jounin's chest opposite the heart, exactly to the place where the source of darkness is felt. What is this? Attention. You have learned a new skill. Absorption. Absorption. Level 1. Darkness can absorb the enemy's chakra and its focus, making it its own. Attention. The skill is automatically activated. What did I just do? I yelled, pulling my hand back, watching the Jounin's body dry out. The notification beeped. The takeover is complete. Plus 3% lightning affinity. Plus 1% water affinity. Plus 2 to chakra. This is madness. Now I also have to engage in cannibalism? Phew, calm down. Well, officially I didn't eat anyone. This can hardly be called cannibalism. But its benefits. Imagining how the chakra is rapidly reaching sky-high heights, I'm almost drooling. Well, no. What horde of shinobi will I need to squash to collect that many? I'm not a maniac to mindlessly kill everyone for chakra. Oh, what prospects! After a heavy sigh I look at the mummy-like Jonin. I hope he didn't feel drained. With a pop, the corpse is sealed back, and I decided not to take risks with that girl. And then something caught my attention. Plus 3% lightning affinity. Plus 1% water affinity. As I recall, the original Tatsuya had no predisposition to elemental jutsu. And this is something cooler. In the future, I can master all the elements. And if absorption devours genomes too? Yes, this is GR, there will be a cheat. So, Tatsuya, calm down. The very next day I brought paper from the city to determine the elemental chakra. Of course, it was not easy to find, it is still not a military country, but Shijo had something. Having explained that I had not determined the element before, thereby confirming that I was not a clan member, I received several sheets for a relatively small fee. Holding the sheet between his fingers, he concentrated on the paper, feeding chakra into it. Nothing that I expected happened. The paper turned completely black, after which it fell into ash. As I expected, the affinity with the elements is not enough for it to appear on the paper. And the fact that it turned black is naturally a sign of Yamaton. This is what surprised me. If my Kekkei Genkai manifested itself on the leaf, then the others should also manifest themselves. This means that each element has a different reaction on paper. Suppose a Hayaton, the release of ice, causes a leaf to become covered with frost, or perhaps simply turns it into a plate of ice, which is quite understandable, then what is the distinguishing characteristic of Jotan, the release of lava? Will the paper be covered in lava? Will it burn like a cathode? Well, okay, what about magnetism? How to determine it using a leaf? It's not metal. Of course, these are just stupid hypotheses generated by my mind, but still. I would like to see all the releases and their manifestations on paper. Attention. Quest generated. A fleeting desire. Goal. See all the releases. Reward. Variable. Penalty for failure. None. As expected. The system responded to my stupid thought and created a quest. I accept the task, deciding that a goal, even such a stupid one, is needed for every person. Why am I worse? And now that all the problems and wishes are over, it's time to check something. With these words, I opened the dungeon of the second level. The first thing I saw when I entered the dungeon was the sky. Strange, greenish in color. Around there were only tall trees and overgrown paths, laid, it seemed, several hundred, or even thousands of years ago. Attention! Dungeon 2 activated. Select a mode. Easy. Medium. Difficult. Special. Well, we won't bother too much with this, easy. We need to assess what kind of creatures are hiding here. Or should I hide myself? Mode selected. Easy. Welcome to the planet Ire. The historical homeland of the Protoss, the planet Ire, is now captured by a swarm of Zerg. Liberate a location from a Zerg lair, 0%. Kill all Zerg in this location, 0%. Attention! It is impossible to leave the dungeon until you complete a special quest. I looked dumbfounded at the unexpected quest, although this was not the reason for my surprise. Ire, his mother, Ire. And the Protoss and Zerg. I remember this game. The strategy is one of the few that I liked. Both the plot and the dynamism of the battles. And now they shoved me into it. And they ask you to cleanse the entire planet? Does this system take ideas from my head or what? A location map appeared in front of me, allowing me to breathe freely. It was not the entire planet that needed to be cleaned, but only a limited area. I'll have to see what's on the edge of the territory, just for fun. We have to be careful. Knows what will happen to me. From a Zergling, who may not be a weakling with more than 30 HP, but someone fatter, to an Ultralisk, from which I will confidently run away. Let's hope that the Zerglings will still be weaker, and I won't meet those huge creatures. Well, they drowned. Within 5 minutes I met the first Zerg. Luckily, or perhaps unfortunately, it turned out to be a Zergling. In the game they are so small, but here they are the size of a tiger, and this is not counting the 2 growths on the back that serve as additional limbs. A disgusting face with a huge number of teeth and large protruding fangs. The hind legs were 1.5 to 2 times larger than the front ones, which, by the way, looked like huge claws, not paws. This is the creature of the Zerg, not created for hunting and life. Only for war. The ugly creature looked around, sparkling with its small black eyes, after which it in air with a gasp, smell. With a squeal, the Zergling notified its relatives about the discovery of prey. If you consider that Zerglings even emerge from eggs in pairs, then there is no doubt that a Zergling will not walk alone. A crowd of creatures began to accumulate around, which became proof of my words. I hope StarCraft didn't lie about them being weaklings. The crowd of 24 Zerg gathered was dangerous, and if you remember what a horde they were in the game, it becomes scary. The Zerglings rushed at me at the same time, starting an attack. The extra limbs on their shoulders moved sharply, trying to reach me, while the Zerglings themselves tried to reach me and bite me. No, I'll die from cannon fodder. A swing of the kunai instantly kills one creature, and I managed to notice the added money and experience, as well as the HP I took off, reflected in red above the corpse. The next swing also hits one of the Zerglings, and I'm already swinging for the next blow when the Zerg behind me knocks me down. The creature almost bit my neck, but by dodging it in time, I was able to avoid serious injury or even death. Before I had time to throw it off, the next creature bit into my leg. Something needs to be done. With a pop, the printed shuriken instantly kills several creatures bending over me, and a senbon launched from my mouth pierces the eye of a Zergling who tried to jump on the helpless me. With a squeal, the sub-monster jumps back, and his relative immediately takes his place. This can go on forever. Slamming the ground, I jump onto the nearest tree and, while the Zergs were aiming at me, I make a seal of concentration. Explosion. Along with the roar from the detonated fuin, I noticed the remains of some Zergs who were unlucky enough to be very close to the seal. The rest of the Zerglings, albeit wounded, including the Zergling with a senbon in one eye, who was now threateningly staring at me with his remaining eye, continued to try to attack me. Here is one quickly climbing a tree, after which it tries to reach me with growths and claws. One cutting swing was enough for the Zergling to receive finishing damage. How weak are they? Then I remembered something. Or rather, identify, I whispered, looking at one particularly frisky Zergling. Zergling. Level, 15. Race, Zerg. Affiliation, Queen of Blades. Main characteristic, dexterity. Cannon fodder of the Zerg army, whose genetic code is so simple that one larva can mutate into 2 Zerglings at once. Weak, fast, and numerous, they are indispensable in all large-scale battles of the swarm. It worked. What does this give? And this gives endless prospects. Identification is still at a low level, and there is a possibility that as it increases, I will have the opportunity to recognize the approximate level of an opponent equal to me, or even those who are stronger than me. As for the Zerg, I wouldn't want to meet the Queen of Blades. If even from such a small crowd of Zerg I have to run and act by attack and retreat, then what can I say about a very powerful psionicist? Interrupting my thoughts, I dodged the attempt of one zergling to catch me, throwing a kunai after him. Judging by the squeal, he got it to death. Having intercepted the weapon that appeared from the seal, I squeeze it tightly in my palms and throw it into the crowd of zerg. The zerglings, taught by bitter experience, scattered in different directions, and the explosion only hit a couple or three. Jumping from the tree, I quickly find myself near the nearest creature, inflicting a mortal wound with a cutting blow from a kunai. Somehow they die too quickly. For a whole hour I fought with 24 zergs. A whole hour against a drop, compared to the entire swarm of cannon fodder. I need to level up faster, otherwise my capabilities disappointed me. And we need to get something offensive. Attacking. We need to visit the library. Having painted a bloody clearing with a brush from a seal, he created a completely reliable barrier. B-class, of course, but just right in this place. The barrier against physical damage, and therefore has no chance against a shinobi who has at least some attacking equipment in reserve. And in this place it's just right, because it's unlikely that Kerrigan or other psionics will be shoved into the first dungeon of an easy level. Having entered the subconscious, he immediately began searching. Request, non-attribute techniques. I don't know what ordinary shinobi call them, but I hope the system will understand. By the way, you should also receive a call. A pile of books appeared in front of me, and I began sorting. An hour and a half later. Of the whole pile, only 2 scrolls remained. Most of the books and scrolls turned out to be very weak, you could tear them apart with your bare hand. Some required the presence of a genome or dojitsu, and illusions were also non-attribute attackers. The requirements for intelligence and control were sky high. Oh, how difficult it is without dojitsu, although I'm glad that I was reborn as an Uzumaki. Almost all the parameters are higher than usual, enormous endurance and regeneration, considerable increases in control, and yet everything is still swinging, all pluses. The only downside is that I'm alone. The shadow copying technique became my choice. The study required about the same amount as cloning, and it also covered the shortage of weapons well. Not completely, but if I have at least one shuriken, as well as chakra, I can make a pretty good volley. It's not for nothing that I have a ton of chakra lying around. The next scroll I had was an invocation, undefined. That is, who knows where it will take me. Of course, in the library there were some calls, such as wolves, some types of birds, hares, cats. But something told me that with them my abilities would not go far. But I have plans to conquer Senjutsu, although not in the near future. For now, we'll just make do with concluding a contract and then using future workers for tanking and other roles. Having got out of the subconscious, I fill the barrier with chakra, after which I begin the call. Quickly making the necessary seals, I slap the ground, directing the chakra, after which a strange force with incredible speed pulls me somewhere. Attention! Unexplored terrain discovered. The Dark Lily Mountains are a mountain range where beautiful and dangerous plants grow. Darkness covers this place, and discovering its hidden inhabitants is no easy task. True to the description, the vegetation covering the mountain was truly amazing. Beautiful large flowers that dotted almost all the mountains. Most of the mountains were not high, but rather enormous in width. Well, at least I don't see the edges of the mountains. Although it is quite logical, since a mountain range cannot be small. The vegetation, although multicolored, had dark tones everywhere. I can guess why everything here is connected with darkness, but just, who will be my call? Yes, what's also strange is that the system did not block my access to this place, preventing me from leaving the dungeon. She may well. Attention! You receive the title Discoverer of the Dark Lily Mountains. You were the first to visit this location. +5 to intelligence. +5 to wisdom. +3 to chakra. Oh, good bun. I just arrived, and they're already pumping up my stats. They're not doing this out of kindness. Apparently, they are going to push me into bigger problems. By the way, about these mountains. Strangely, they are literally covered in caves. How does this whole structure hold up? Either the caves are shallow or there is something unusual involved. Sighing, he wandered into the nearest cave. It is more logical to assume that this is the possible residence of summoning creatures. And these creatures are clearly not sun lovers, since it's so empty here. Having reached the cave, I take out a luminous seal from the supplies, after which I enter. The seal didn't provide much light, and so, stumbling, I barely made it to the strange large hole at the top. What a strange cave. I was about to jump into it when a bat flew out of the hole with a loud squeak. A huge bat, a meter high, flew at me and then threw me back, having previously taken away the seal and torn it. I was prevented from getting a new one by a cut on my hand from a mouse attack, which quickly began to add new wounds to me. It hurts. Enough already. I yelled, releasing an aura of darkness. A loud knock signaled that the creature had fallen, and I used this to paralyze it and take out the seal of light. In the dim light, a creature glared angrily at me with blind eyes, and its intentions were clear. If there weren't a seal on it, it would have torn me apart. Huge ears, webbed wings, he was a complete copy of a bat, except that he was big. Here's a call for you. I don't want to harm you. I am Uzumaki Tatsuya, I have come to conclude a summoning contract. With these words I slowly remove the seal, keeping another one under my sleeve just in case. Man, the mouse squeaked, taking off sharply. Entering back into the hole at the top of the cave, the creature squeaked. It was so loud that even the caves vibrated. Wait, how do I hear ultrasound? I'm human, understandable. The question is removed. A minute later, response sounds were heard outside from, apparently, the relatives of the mouse, after which I felt how the seal disappeared from my hand, and I myself was turned over and forced to hang. They won't eat me? I prepare an aura of darkness, at the same time putting chakra into a seal on my palm. If anything, I won't have lunch. So you want to make a contract with us, child? The squeak of some ancient creature was heard. I don't know where it came from, the sound seemed to come from all sides, and yet, this creature inspires fear. Why did I decide that he was ancient? The mouse, or whoever is squeaking here, was not strong. He seemed to press not with force, but with wisdom. Yes. It brought me to you because I have great compatibility with you. And what do you have that fate decided to bring you to us? The squeak forced me to tell the whole truth. I have the element of darkness, I release darkness in its raw form. Giving evidence. Well, child, we accept you. But remember, you will be the first to enter into a contract with our family, and the slightest mistake could lead to your death. They let me go, and when I took out the seal, I saw a whole horde of these mice. The only non-blind mouse looked at me with red eyes, and it looked so old that I felt like a sperm. It's a stupid comparison, of course, but this is exactly the feeling you get when you look at this long-lived man. Thoughts smoothly turned to the fact that the old mouse mentioned death. It seems like when you sign a contract you just sign the agreement on a scroll. Why then bring unnecessary risks? The contract is concluded with the help of a scroll? Scroll? How can he be with us? The creature grinned. How will we conclude a contract then? Easily. With the help of blood. But the probability that you will die is high. Wait, how is this? Do they want to deceive me and drink free blood? You will have to drink a drop of blood and also give us yours. The one you choose will be your permanent partner. Having said this, the elder turned around, after which the light was stolen again. There are so few of them left, and I was carried in an unknown direction. Thrown into some hole, I found myself among a crowd of small mice. There was no question of trust, several 2-meter bats stood behind me, and dozens of equally huge creatures squealed from above. So this is what they meant. I need to choose someone from this crowd and make him my summoner. Okay, let's find ourselves a future partner. The system actively helped in the search, showing compatibility with small squeaking mice. It should be noted that they were the size of an adult of ordinary bats. The gaze lingered on the absolutely black mouse, against the background of its dark gray counterparts. She looks weak. Attention. Compatibility, 88%. Considering that the maximum before this was 42%. Attention. The creature has Yamatan genes. I choose him. I blurted out, pointing at the black mouse. Okay, give her your finger, the elder said, looking at my choice. The mouse squeaked funny, trying to keep warm in a bunch of its relatives. Stretching out my finger, I was surprised when she didn't bite it, but climbed onto my hand, after which it migrated along it to my clothes. I thought she wanted to warm up, when I felt a sharp prick of pain in the middle of my chest. This, I heard. I'm the excited squeak of an old mouse before I black out. Attention. You have made a contract with the creatures. Dark mice. Dark mice are a subspecies of bat that evolved due to the aura of the Dark Lily Mountains. They feed on meat, blood, and some types of fruits and vegetables. Attention. You got a pet. Name? Select name. Level 1. Species, dark mouse, female. Strength, 1. Dexterity, 5. Endurance, 1. Intelligence, 3. Wisdom, 2. Free points, 5. Achievements. Dark mouse. Your pet is an evolved bat. Plus 150% to hearing. Plus 3 agility per level. Plus 50% to pumping agility. Creature of darkness. Your pet has an affinity with the element of darkness. Plus 30% to pumping Yamatan. Attention. You have received the achievement. Supreme Fusion. Compatibility with your pet is abnormally high. Plus 15% to mouse parameters when you are nearby, 100 meters. Plus 10% to leveling up characteristics when you are nearby, 100 meters. After the 10th level, you will be able to have a mental connection with your pet. Oh, what goodies! Even the pain in your head doesn't bother you so much when you've been given such raises all at once. I showed up where they took me from. In a familiar cave. 1. Hey, where are you? I tried to get up. But something in the chest area made me fall on my butt, and I pulled out the cause of the discomfort. My pet. Wait, was I just handed a summon? And they're going to send it with me? Yes, the Zerg will tear her apart. That's it, Tatsuya, calm down. We should give the mouse a name. The little one looked at me intently with her blue eyes, which looked strange against the background of her completely black body. And the fact that this little thing had vision. A nice bonus. Indeed, in some situations, relying on hearing is useless. I'll call you AKO. The mouse just looked at me without making a single squeak. You understand me? She moved her head, showing that she understood. A few hours later. Several dozen Zerglings tried to break through the barrier. There was no one inside the dome, but for some reason all the creatures wanted to be inside. Suddenly, with a pop, a tall young man appeared with a coal-black bat on his shoulder. Rumpled, torn clothes in some places, dirty hair, he in no way looked like the one who had disappeared just a few hours ago. Sighing, Tatsuya unsealed the kunai and grinned. It's time to farm, AKO. I need to create clones, otherwise this crowd will cause me a lot of trouble. The Zerglings themselves will not do anything to me, but AKO. For them, she is no more powerful than a mosquito, and therefore we need to somehow pump her up quickly. I wasn't worried about this, because the function discovered in the world of summoning made it possible to distribute experience. Summoner window. Experience distribution. You, 10%. Pet, 90%. Passive skills. Supreme fusion. Closed. 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 Active skills. Closed. 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 For now, she is only useful in the distribution of experience. But here are the future prospects for this interface, when I gain passive and active skills. I can safely become a summoner. Okay, I got distracted. We need to focus on the Zerglings hammering the barrier. AKO? Do you want to go back to your world? It's very dangerous here, I suggested to the bat, to which she just shook her head. Squeaking loudly, she hid under my new jacket, which I fished out of the print. I took it just in case, it was useful, otherwise my previous clothes had become unusable after the attack of dark mice. And the cuts haven't healed completely yet. Okay, I'll make do. I think clones would be suitable for this situation. Since I don't have mass shadow cloning, throwing meat at the Zerg won't work. Therefore, you will have to use ordinary ones, which I create myself, and not my clones. Having created 4, I quickly begin to sculpt explosive seals on them, making them look like mummies. The clones just stood there, looking at me with a grin. I really wanted to punch me. Well? Ready? Do we have a choice? They asked in unison. Of course not. Okay, that's it, I take out another sheet of paper from the Fuin storage. Let's go. I attached the last Kibakufyuda to the back of the 4th clone, who stood next to the barrier. Seeing the multiplication of enemies, the Zerg began to hammer at the barrier with even greater tenacity. I need to get away faster. The barrier flickered and then disappeared, and I hurried to the nearest tall tree, noting as I jumped that several animals were chasing me. Most of the Zerglings fell on the poor clones, who, like brave warriors, waved kunai, cutting their way through. What did that guy say? Oh, yes. An explosion is art, and art is an explosion. Cats. It thundered so loudly that even I almost threw bricks. Take it, what would I sign up for if I decided to sit in the barrier and release the clones? Anyway, I was a little wrong when I said that only a few were chasing me. 12 Zerglings were trying to crawl into the tree where I was sitting with the squeaking AKO. When will they end? I jumped to the next tree, making seals on the fly and throwing several shuriken at the monsters. Shadow copy technique. The shurikens became a cloud of iron, almost tearing the Zerglings into pieces. A powerful technique. The anticipation of future battles using a huge amount of throwing iron was interrupted by a tree, into which I slammed the back of my head. I rub my head, and then check on AKO. Why are they spamming there? Turning on notifications, I came across a bunch of messages. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Rejoiced, I begin to distribute points according to the required parameters. Just 3 levels and AKO will be able to speak to me mentally. Although, I think I will have to teach her to communicate there, since she was born only 3 days ago. Her father died a long time ago, but AKO's mother was dried up. The rest of the bats don't know how this happened, but I have my doubts. After the distribution, AKO did not become larger or change in appearance in any way. It's just that the feeling that you can slam it with a wave of your palm has disappeared. But the fact that her level soared so quickly surprised me. How many Zerg were there? 40? 45? But before that I finished off a whole horde and nothing, I didn't gain any more experience. Okay, let's finish our rest, I turned to the cheerful dark mouse, after which, getting up from the place of the fall, I continued on my way, to nowhere. Where should I go? There was a black line in front of me, behind which I could only see the shadow of some structures. So this is what the edge of the map looks like. Yes, wandering through the jungle led me to the edge, where, as it turned out, it was as if the territory had been cut into two parts by a huge knife. Half of the tree stood straight on my side, and on the other, dark side, its shadow was barely visible. The thrown pebble seemed to hit an invisible barrier, it simply fell silently, reaching the black line. Okay, have fun and that's enough. AKO, who was squeaking indignantly on her shoulder, was taken into my hand, after which I carefully examined her. Nothing remarkable, an ordinary bat, except that it is completely black. There are no extra limbs and so on. And now the question. How should I feed her? They simply left me this little one, by the standards of those bats, without information or a guide to caring for a bat. Do you want to eat? AKO nods, after which she escaped from her arms, again moving onto her shoulder and burying herself in the collar of her jacket. What does she want to say? Wait, the jacket covers your neck. Does she want my blood? My mother is a woman, should I also feed this little thing with blood? Apparently, realizing from my skeptical face that she would not wait for the food, AKO squeaked loudly, after which she quickly clung to my hand. A flash of pain, after which I feel my dark chakra draining away. And it's not as painful as I imagined. Looking at AKO, who was greedily sucking, as it turned out, my chakra, I saw that there was no blood at the site of the bite. Just a mark from small fangs and that's it. Okay, let's feed the poor mouse. For 3 hours I had to wander through the jungle in search of these dens. Where did these creatures hide? I understand that the map is simply huge, and I'm unlikely to be able to notice anything among the tall trees, but I need to get out. My business is disappearing there. And with him, my goal is to save some money before the war. Sighing, I quickly send the 2 zerglings into oblivion. The remaining zerg rushed at me, but my bored mind gave me a wonderful idea. I turn on the aura of darkness, deciding to check what will happen. With a warlike squeak, AKO attacks the zergling, who has not even frozen for a second. Okay, my bad. What bad memory could a creature have, guided only by instincts and the command of the queen? AKO had successfully killed the monster, but my scientific interest was not going to let me go. By the way, about my pet. In 3 hours, we were able to kill about 100 of these creatures, so AKO was now level 13. Due to their larger bodies, zerglings can withstand it, since they are also not deprived of agility. But AKO was growing little by little, and this made me happy, because the dark mouse could become my faithful and strong ally. Stupid. The mouse squealed in my head as I extended my hand to the zergling's body. But the absorption had already worked. With a crash, the zergling's body turns into an ugly something, but that was the last thing that worried me. I felt the presence of someone powerful. Takeover successful. Plus 30 experience. Attention. One of the Chaos Gods noticed you. Minus 50% luck forever. Attention. The Chaos God has left a mark on your aura. Effects unknown. What? How could this happen? What brought him to me? Zergling absorption. Attention. Message for you. Open? Yes. I hope he clears everything up. Message. From Crumb, High God of Entertainment. To Uzumaki Tatsuya. That was unexpected. But don't worry, I'll sort everything out. You can continue with your business, but next time refrain from doing things that lead to such problems. Attention. Mark of Chaos has been removed. Attention. Luck restored. Phew. I wiped invisible sweat from my forehead. Almost got into trouble because of a zergling. Be that as it may, I now swear to devour these creatures. They will bring on all sorts of gods. The message from me was still not sent, being blocked by the system due to a low access level. Nothing, someday I will get answers to all my questions. Fool. AKO flew at my carcass lying on the ground, fiercely biting my finger. I groan, withdraw my hand, and then look at the mouse's reproachful gaze. Okay, sorry. I was stupid, I stroked her head. The pouting mouse only lightly bit his hand, and then climbed back onto his shoulder. I stood in front of a huge organic building, amazed at how well the Zerg had hidden their lair. It seems like a red building that should stand out among the green sea of the jungle, but the Xenos managed to hide the lair so well that I spent many hours searching for it. A huge building, more like a small slide, with dark purple liquid around it. The liquid, which I recognized as the mucus seen many times in the game, covered the next 100 meters around the lair, and inside, as I understood, there were about 100 Zerglings. And someone bigger. I don't know what it is, but we can't delay this. And so I lost a lot of time. AKO, now already level 20, the speed of development is simply terrifying, carefully watched the slow movements in the large ropes that entangled the lair. Several Zerglings scurrying around made it clear that at the slightest danger to the lair, all the creatures now inside would come out here. Dangerous, AKO responded to my grinning face. The kunai hit the Zergling right in the forehead, and I, who was about to attack the others, was stopped by a notification. Attention! You have received the title, Rank 1 Hunter. The title is awarded for killing 200 monsters. Plus 3% to all characteristics. You have received the title, Rank 1 Zergling Slayer. The title is awarded for killing 200 Zerglings. Plus 10% experience per Zergling. Oh, unexpected. 3% to all stats and additional experience, the titles are worth it. Especially the first one creates anticipation. It says 1, which means that most likely there will be a second level, and a third, and so on. My hesitation was felt by AKO, who began to protect me from the agile Zerglings. I take the kunai out of the seal, repelling the Zerg's claws, and with the next blow I deal fatal damage. Suddenly the lair began to tremble. From all the visible holes, a large crowd of Zerg, seemingly a dark red stream, climbed towards us. Even though I had killed squads of Zerg before, I had never encountered a group of about 100. I have to admit, it looks impressive. Suddenly, a large creature slowly crawled out of one exit of the lair, the appearance of which was disgusting. Over 5 meters in size, it slowly crawled towards me, surrounded by several Zerg. The tentacles in front moved quickly, and the huge limbs for movement caused nausea. A black, even seemingly thick shell covered the huge bag-like rear part of the body. Suddenly the creature quickly, considering its size, buried itself underground and disappeared. What kind of creature is this? I don't remember such a monster in StarCraft. My thoughts were interrupted by the stomping of Zerglings, and I hastened to throw kunai in their direction. Shadow copy technique. The Zerglings, despite the ton of iron, were still advancing, and I had to enter into close combat. I slightly touched the side of the Zergling that jumped at me with my palm, and then I jump away. AKO, who already understood why I did this, also flew to the side. The seal exploded, turning the poor animal into mush, and killing his closest relatives in the most cruel way. The sudden appearance of greenish slime almost knocked me off my feet, and I realized that I did not have time to dodge the claws of another Zergling. The creature falls with a squeal when AKO clings to its back. The dark mouse quickly reacted and tried to help me get out of this cloud of mucus. Suddenly I noticed a strange 2-meter creature jumping out of the ground. Behind him, literally a few meters from me, that huge creature crawled out. Wait! Slime restricting movement, some infected man in armor with a huge firearm in his hands. Infectors? I almost screamed, jumping to the side as quickly as possible. At that same second, an avalanche of bullets rained down on my previous location. The infected Terran, as I remembered, was slow, but now he was persistently trying to shoot AKO. Kunai with explosive seals flew at the man covered with red ropes, and I, taking advantage of the pause of the Zerglings who came under fire from their own side, an infected soldier cannot think, so he aims wherever he can, quickly took out a new weapon. AKO flew up and, squeaking loudly, began an attack on the infector. Corruptor Duri began to quickly wave his tentacles, fighting back, and the Zerglings also tried to get the dexterous mouse. While the Terran is reloading his weapon, where did he get the cartridges from? I make a dash towards him, after which I hammer the kunai into one of the cords as hard as I can. Jumping back, I form a seal of concentration, after which the Terran, who was reaching for the stuck kunai, explodes. The force of the explosion broke the poor soldier into pieces along with his armor. I somehow doubt that it was Neo Steel. Having arrived in time to help AKO, I see how she is stuck in the green slurry, and an infestor with Zerglings is trying to get to her. Having covered a distance of 20 meters, I raise my arms, using special fuin with Senbon, which release them with the strength of an average Jonin, and even with a decent frequency. Which is to the detriment of my stock of weapons. Okay, then my summoner was shot down, why am I worried about the metal? Shadow copy technique. A rain of combat needles falls on the fleeing Zerg, which, unfortunately, did not have much effect. AKO climbs onto my shoulder, shaking off the sticky substance, and then, squeaking, grabs my jacket with her claws. Just in time, as I dodged the infector's attack with a sharp jump. So, there was a Terran, there was inhibition, only, a parasite remained. Phew, it's good that I managed to dodge. AKO removes the last remnants of the mucus interfering with the flight, and then takes off. We're attacking the big one, I told her. AKO squeaked and then flew towards the infector. Following her, he quickly killed the remaining Zerg, after which he threw 4 kunai with explosive surprises in turn. The infector, having lost the support of cannon fodder, tried to hide underground, but the kunai stuck in its belly were not easy to remove. Cats! It thundered so loudly that I fell, covering my ears with my hands. AKO managed to soar up and avoid the negative effect, but the ground where the huge creature was trying to hide, the ground was torn apart along with the body of the infector, forming a wild mixture. I even almost vomited from disgust. God, if there are pests here. There could be hydralisks with their spikes, 3-meter cockroaches, mutalisks and all sorts of other game, against which I have practically nothing. Phew, let's calm down, this is the first dungeon. There is nothing dangerous. I hope. We must try to absorb this creature. Even if touching it causes disgust, and there is a possibility of attracting the attention of extra gods, life was given to me for fun, right? Why am I afraid then? With such a patron. -1 intelligence. +1 wisdom. Having ignored such an offensive notification, despite the increase in wisdom, I approach the remains of, what seems to be the head of the creature, after which I activate the absorption. Absorption. Attention. Lack of object energy. Error. Okay. It's time to take on the lair. She has already managed to create larvae and is now actively trying to create new creatures. It's your lack of creation, not the new Zergs. I grab as many seals as possible, after which I give a small part to AKO. Together with the displeased squeaking mouse, who was assigned additional work, as I noticed from the notifications, she had reached level 20, and a considerable amount of experience had been gained from the infector. I went to hang the Kibakufyuda, simultaneously destroying the cocoons of the larvae. I didn't dare go inside the lair, so, having placed the maximum number of seals on the surface, I move to the maximum distance from which the seals can be controlled, and then I blow up this black spot. Despite such a far distance of 500 meters, the explosion seemed to sound a meter away from me, so I was only glad that I decided to move as far away as possible. AKO pressed herself into my jacket, getting inside, and then fell asleep. Okay, let him gain strength until the next battle. Noting that I forgot to identify the lair and the infector, I go to the other side of the map. The remains of the 5th lair now appeared before me. AKO and I were able to reach the 28th level during this time, and this is already 20-odd hours. During this time, I received the title of Rank 2 Hunter, which gave 6% to all stats. For this required killing 1,000 Zerg, so I have the title relatively recently. The same as Rank 2 Zergling Slayer, which increased the amount of experience by 20%. In short, from one dungeon, especially an easy level, I gained so much benefit that it's hard to even imagine what advantages I will get there, at other levels and dungeons. By the way, I was able to find out what infestors and lairs are. Corruptor. Level, 25. Race, Zerg. Affiliation, Queen of Blades. Main characteristic, Endurance. Support troops for the Zerg army. More like a mobile hive than a normal creature, infestors are one of the Queen's main forces of sabotage. Lair of the Zerg. Type, Structure. Race, Zerg. The most common Zerg nest. The lair creates larvae that can evolve into a specific type of Zerg. The vast tunnels inside serve as shelter. This way I was able to find out what I was up to. Basically, no new information. I already knew all this from the game, but the fact that there is an infector in each lair is annoying. Are these some kind of mini-bosses? AKO, check if there are any Zerg nearby. Okay, the bat answered, taking off. I decided to look at the task. Clear a location from Zerg lairs, 80%. Lairs destroyed, 5 out of 5. Kill all Zerg in this location, 85%. Attention! It is impossible to leave the dungeon until you complete a special quest. Wait. What the I destroyed all the lairs. After the first lair, information about the number appeared, so I was sure that this was the last one. But why only 80%? And there are a lot of Zerg left. What kind of dungeon is so incomprehensible? Suddenly, the map open on the side began to change. 5 lairs, located at equal distances from each other, to my surprise, began to slowly acquire lines, showing me a star. An ordinary 5-sided star, in the center of which, as if in games, some incomprehensible curiosity was displayed, reminiscent of intestines. Dungeon boss? The last, 20% lair? Be that as it may, that's where they call me. AKO, come back, I called my pet. We're starting a raid on the boss. The hive was visible from afar. It was a huge 10-meter building, resembling a small hill. Entangled in the same red cords and spreading purple mucus over 500 meters, it evoked awe and disgust. Such a huge organism. The fact that he appeared only now became clear to me. Not only because such a huge thing would be visible from the top of the trees, but also because I had already passed this place. Moreover, I appeared here when I first entered the dungeon. Having already entered the territory of the slime, which also prevented me from moving quickly, I discovered about 500 living creatures next to the lair and in the lair itself. 3 of them are strong, 2 are infectors and someone else. A creature that will be more terrible than them. The Zerg, who had already noticed me, began to attack, causing a crowd of their own, so, quickly scattering the seals, I ran away. I have an instinct for self-preservation, even if it doesn't always work. Climbing towards an unknown creature, and even with 2 infectors, threatened me, if not with death, then at least with serious injury. By the way, they are infectious. I was able to absorb 2 of the 5, which gave me something new. Neural parasite. Level 1. A neural parasite lives in your body, a unique creature capable of controlling the brain. When released, the parasite takes control of an enemy unit for a certain amount of time, after which it returns to you. When killed, it is reborn 3 days later. The effect lasts 5 seconds. I don't know if it was worth absorbing the infestors. There's a parasite living in my body. A mind-controlling one at that. What if he wants to take control of my brain? The ability used in the 5th layer showed its potential and created some questions. I admit, the skill is simply immature. Seizing control of the infected Terran helped me quickly put an end to the horde. With the rate of fire of a Gauss rifle, the Terran shot 12.5 Zerg in 5 seconds, and after that the parasite, very similar to a sphere with a mouth, quickly penetrated into my hand, from where it flew out even when I activated the skill. After the fight, I examined my hand for half an hour and discovered that there was some kind of anomaly there. The parasite did not chew its way inside, and I did not feel anything foreign in myself. AKO was also surprised when she saw the parasite simply disappear. Promising myself that I would do this when I got the necessary data, I went to the new hive. That's how I got this ability, which is a stick with 2 sharp ends. I don't deny that she will be my trump card if I get into a dead end. It's time. AKO squealed in her head, having already soared to a decent height. The Zerg almost reached my mind place, but suddenly, they just turned around and went back. What's going on here? I exploded. There were also not enough cautious Zerglings. Well, thank you, dungeon, for such an easy level. Come on, just a little more. Yes. I explode the seal with a joyful cry. 12 Zerglings, apparently sent on reconnaissance by that powerful creature in the hive, were blown up. AKO, who had previously been hanging on a tree, squealed, after which she quickly caught up with the fleeing Zergling, finishing him off. For the 2nd hour now, I, like a brave saboteur, have been blowing up the Xenos, catching all the Zerglings emerging from the slime zone. The entire area around the hive was mined by me and my clones, and I did not spare chakra, therefore, in the next 24 hours no one would leave the hive. It was not enough to scour the jungle in search of the escaped Zergling. The clones were ambushed, so, handing AKO over to protect me, he created a barrier. It's better to be safe than sorry, and then went to the library in search of something for a more large-scale battle. I can't do it with stamps and copying techniques alone. Already entering the library, I gave the system a request to find large-scale impact techniques. I hope the upgraded parameters will help me find at least one suitable technique. Half an hour of desperate searching later, I yelled, emerging from my subconscious. No technique fit the parameters. One has too many requirements, the other is too weak and unnecessary. All normal techniques using chakra require the element, which I have. Take this chakra, no. What did you do there? AKO became interested, who had only scant knowledge about my library from my words in the midst of searching for logs. Having assured the bat that I would tell everything after the dungeon, I decided to think again about how to destroy an entire hive. I noticed one unpleasant fact: no matter how I used to get and destroy the Zerglings, the hive immediately began to create new ones, and the larval pupae were protected by the entire crowd of monsters. Suddenly I received information from one clone. He was killed. Not a small group, but the whole hive. Having rushed to the place where my clone disappeared, I saw how the remaining 2 were desperately holding back about 100 Zerglings using barriers. Behind the vanguard of the Zerglings was a huge crowd of 400 in total, led by one infector. AKO, you are attacking the Zerglings. Stay out of the center and help the clones. Having given orders, he took a kunai in each hand, after which he reached the edge of the barrier with one powerful jump. The clones who saw me pointed underground. This means how? There are 2 infectors, and not 1, as I thought. Let's go. I throw 4 kunai with explosion tags at once into the thick of it, trying to hit the infector. The Zerglings, sensing a threat to their disabler, covered the huge subworm with a human shield. The infestor resembled a huge fat worm, after which 30-odd Zerglings successfully threw back the ends. Having unsealed 2 more kunai, he noted that the supply of weapons was very small, and rushed into battle. AKO and the clones successfully mowed down the vanguard while I rushed towards the main forces. The stupid thought that I was rushing to the armada like a Spartan stuck in my head, and I made the next blow without expecting it. Extending my palm, I instantly concentrate a large amount of dark chakra into my hands, after which I release it in one direction. A huge black stripe that appeared in front of me dried up 50 creatures. Still, comparing darkness with energy was a good idea. You have learned a new skill. Manifest Darkness. Level 1. Area of effect, 3, width, 7, length. By concentrating darkness, you can release it in a single burst, destroying the life force of your enemies. Attention! Event activated, Zerg Rush. Plus 10% to Zergling speed. Plus 20% to the total number of Zerglings. Here. AKO, quickly under the barrier. Having printed out the required scroll, I was about to activate it, when suddenly a bullet pierced it. It's good that I didn't have time to apply chakra. The Terran who was shooting was instantly attacked by the oriented AKO, and I hastened to pay attention to the horde approaching from the hive. How could I kill them all? Okay, let's go. I take the kunai in my right hand, after which I begin to run straight towards the horde. The Zerglings almost climbed on top of each other, mindlessly moving towards me, so the newfound ability was very relevant. Manifestation of Darkness. All the creatures a few meters ahead died safely. With regret, I feel that the ability consumes a decent amount of chakra, and there may not be enough for this battle. I dodge a stray bullet from an infected Terran, after which I throw a neural parasite in his direction. Now the soldier is firing his rifle at his own people, and AKO does not have to worry about the shooting. She almost killed the infector, but I hastened to finish off the Terran who was already coming to his senses. The kunai instantly reached the infected person's neck, after which, the second one jumped out of the ground with a roar. The second infector. The Terran was also quickly taken out, because I was too fast to shoot, and the paratroopers dressed in a huge spacesuit were not distinguished by their agility. Shadow cloning technique. With a pop, the clones appear nearby, having eaten a decent portion of the already quickly emptying reserve. Xeno's urine. To the wild scream of one of the clones, I and 4 of my copies rushed into close combat with the Zerglings. Their speed noticeably increased, so already at the beginning of the battle I lost 1 careless clone. The next ones were more careful, so we started the massacre. Manifestation of Darkness. The directed chakra of darkness quickly turns the infector left alone into a mummy. Okay, it's time to take a look at what kind of notifications I received. Level +1. Level +1. Your pet has received a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. Your pet has reached a new level. Distribute the points. As expected, he still killed the whole horde. Attention! You received the title, Zerg Rush Survivor. You have survived the Zergling's main weapon, crowd suppression. Plus 3% to stamina. Oh, they gave me a nice title. Of course, the name doesn't sound pretentious, but the bonus is very significant. So, it's time to scatter the points among the stats. Name, Tatsuya Uzumaki. Race, human, shinobi. Affiliation, Uzumaki. Level, 30. Strength, 87. Agility, 97. Endurance, 135. Wisdom, 120. Intelligence, 123. Chakra, 85. Control, 61. Luck, 24. Will, 25. Free points, 0. Achievements. Heir of Uzumaki. The Last of the Might. Uzumaki. Zerg Hunter 2. Zergling Slayer 2. Supreme Fusion. It seems like everything. Soon agility will reach 100, and it's likely that they will give me a new skill, just like it happened with other stats that exceeded 100. By the way, it's time to distribute AKO's points. Name, AKO. Level, 31. Species, Dark Mouse, Female. Strength, 65. Dexterity, 153. Stamina, 89. Intelligence, 87. Wisdom, 56. Free points, 0. Achievements. Dark Mouse. Creature of Darkness. AKO has already surpassed me in level, and also has a tremendous amount of agility. Well, +3 for each level are also the points I distributed. Unfortunately, she did not receive a new skill from reaching 100. That's it, AKO. It's time to go to the boss, I said mentally. I thought it wouldn't hurt to recover, but alas, the hive is already creating new zerglings, and their number. There were a lot of larvae, and all of them were now turning into zergling pupae. As we approached the huge building, I began to clearly sense the location of the boss. The darkness indicated a place right in the center of the hive, so, deciding not to risk it yet, I began to destroy the cocoons. Scree! The squeal caused me to quickly jump to my feet and AKO to look at the hive excitedly. What is this? The creature is coming out. She began to climb out. A huge creature with a humanoid figure on an arachnoid body. 8 limbs with huge and sharp claws were intended for fast running through the mucus, but the huge growths were clearly for combat. The creature looked at the broken cocoons, after which the screech was repeated. Several cocoons had already grown into zerglings, and now they stood in a circle around the queen. The queen, the creature is very strong and significant for the zerg. She is unlikely to compete with ultralisks in battle, but the zerg will prefer 1 queen to 10 ultralisks. This is the reason why the zerglings became overly cautious. They were ruled by a queen. AKO, you have zerglings on you. I looked at the mouse on my shoulder, which, squeaking something affirmative, flew up. Having intercepted the kunai that came out of the seal, I make a sharp jerk towards the queen, after which I touched the nearest zergling, who tried to bite me. Jumping to the side, I quickly form a seal of concentration, after which the zergling quickly turns into a pile of meat. The wounded zerglings nearby did not think of retreating, fiercely defending the queen, who was throwing some kind of bone growths the size of a knife at my pet. Throwing 10 shuriken at once, I make the hand seals I have already learned. Shadow copy technique. One way or another, but now 100 shuriken were already flying into the crowd gathered near the hive. I hurried after them, preparing to repeat the explosion trick. Carefully. AKO squeaked, so, ducking sharply, I saw how one of the limbs on the humanoid part of the queen's body was trying to impale me, from a distance of 5 meters. Having sharply dodged, I throw shurikens, after which I close the distance while the queen fought off the throwing iron. Each of the 8 limbs was the size of me, so, having penetrated under the belly, I decided to pathetically cut her stomach. It didn't work, because these bone limbs could reach me even under the belly. Having rolled away from one, I get out from under the feet of the queen, who was about to crush me, and then I jump onto her back. The bone limbs were very close, so after grabbing them for a few seconds, I was sent flying with a sharp swing. Having regrouped in the air, I form a seal of concentration. Scree! A heartbreaking sound came from the queen's lips. The explosion tore off both her weapons, so she was left helpless, because if she uses the spikes on me, AKO would have an excellent opportunity to kill her. Several zerglings attacked me, which I, being in a good mood, cut down. Kunai. The next jerk, after which the queen, with whom I pierced the humanoid head, fell to the ground with a death cry, was the end of the battle. The organized movements of the zerglings became a fuss, after which cutting them down became easy. He took a handful of explosion tags, as always, giving some to AKO, who began to mold them at the top. Half an hour later the hive was destroyed. Dungeon, welcome to the planet Ire, passed. Free a location from Zerg lairs, completed. Kill all Zerg in this location, completed. For completing this you receive 5,000 experience. 100,000 Rio. Partial transformation skill. Finally. Kushina had been in a bad mood since morning. Minato, who decided to help her, was gently sent to hell, and all because she did not feel him. Having decided to check the connection in the morning, she did not even suspect that meditation would lead nowhere. Desperate, she skipped the first lesson, for which, of course, she was scolded, spending time on meditation. But there was no result. Staring blankly at the practice test sheet, she thought about what had happened to him. He had disappeared somewhere, that was clear. But what should she do? How can she get back at least a piece of what she felt before? Yes. Kushina suddenly squealed, causing half of the class to flinch, and the other to stare in bewilderment at the red-haired fool, who was happy about something incomprehensible. Kushina was embarrassed, after which she muttered something under her breath and sat down. Although Uzumaki did not care about the opinions of others. What worried her much more was that the connection had been restored, and she clearly felt his emotions. Relief was what her mysterious savior felt. Other emotions were completely replaced by this feeling, as if he had barely completed some task. Kushina hurried to finish the test, just to spend the remaining time on him, not even suspecting that Minato was piercing her back with his eyes. I found myself in my dungeon, in the same place from where I entered the dungeon. Finally. I collapsed on the bed, laughing with relief. How good. Suddenly a wave of joyful emotions literally flooded me, after which I was saturated to the brim with positivity. A vaguely familiar connection conveyed someone's feelings to me, although I seemed to know whose. Could it be that that connection has finally manifested itself? The joy in my curiosity was doubled, and after I, having realized what had happened, was also happy, Kushina almost drowned me under tons of joyful emotions. It turns out that it's nice. Here, AKO, how could I forget about her? I quickly form the summoning seals and bite through my finger, after which I slam my palm onto the ground. With the edge of my consciousness I note the seals, call, blood, contract, that appeared on the ground. A second later, AKO appeared with a pop. With a squeak, she climbed into my disheveled hair, which after her visit turned into real horror, after which the poor mouse looked at me reproachfully. A few minutes have passed for me here, but she has been in her world for several hours. Come on, I stroked her, after which I immediately removed my hand. In the place where my hand had been a moment ago, the small fangs of a dark mouse clicked. Bad master. A thin squeak rushed through her consciousness, after which she hid under her shirt. He'll be offended for an hour, and then he'll forget. Okay, it's time to find out what happened here in my absence. Nanao was against concluding an agreement with the Seal Master, who came from nowhere. There was a possibility that he was a spy sent to ingratiate himself with Shiju, but lately those doubts had begun to fade. Thanks to timely delivery, the shortage of the required seals was unnoticeable, and there was a chance that they would survive the crisis with minimal losses. The situation that happened this morning spread throughout the world, but they were among the first to receive this information. Iwagakure declared 3 villages along the Otofoku River as its controlled settlements. Everything would be fine, but these villages belonged to Hai no Kuni. A meeting immediately began in the land of rivers. Shijo-san also went there. Nanao put aside another folder with reports, after which, with a tired sigh, she took off her glasses and put them next to her. Massaging her temples, she thought about why Iva took such a step. According to Willow's announcement, they only took control of territories on their own river. But officially Otofoku does not belong to anyone. One bank is occupied by the country of Earth, and the other by the country of Fire. This was the boundary that Iwagakure had broken this morning. It was clear that this was a provocation. The world was already on the brink of war, but Iva's actions accelerated the process many times over. The secretary's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. So, this seems to be the place. After knocking, I receive an absent-minded, "Come in," in response, after which I open the door. Nanao was sitting there, putting on her glasses. She looked at me sternly. "How can I help you, Tatsuya-san?" she asked, taking a stack of papers in her hand. "I wanted to meet with Shijo-san. I need to explain to him where I went for these 2 days. Or not 2 days. How much time has passed here in the real world?" "Iwata-sama left on business," Nanao snapped, after which she delved into the documents. Some were stamped without even reading them, while others the girl read for a long time and then stamped in the other direction. Apparently, realizing that I wouldn't leave so easily, Nanao thought deeply. Of course, I didn't hear the way her convolutions creaked, but it was clear that she was thinking about something. Suddenly she handed me a document. Not even a document, but a letter. Sagittarius Report. The situation on the border with the Earth country has become tense. 3 settlements have been captured, and a large detachment of 150 shinobi is stationed at the borders. Most likely, the news will become known within a few hours. I passed the small piece of paper back, in shock. How long have I been away here? "Nanao-san, what day is it today?" A question burst out from me. The surprised girl looked at me strangely and answered, after which I fell into a precipitate for the second time that day. "It's only been half a day." Half a day. And apparently, the report arrived quite recently. How developed is the espionage system in Cha no Kuni? I assume Shijo-san left due to these reasons? Yes, after a short answer, Nanao returned to her papers. With incredible speed, she cleared the rubble that, apparently, was left by one mayor. Turning her gaze to me and seeing that I had no intention of leaving, the girl sighed. "What else can I help you with, Tatsuya-san?" she asked in such a tone that I wanted to quickly get out of here. Maybe you need help? Aren't you busy creating seals?" I wasn't worried about that. The 4 clones left in my new home were briskly stamping simple seals, so my absence would not affect profits. No. I've completed my daily quota and now I'm looking for something to do. Okay, in fact, I have one job, but I think you won't agree to it. And what is it? We need all this, she pointed to 2 stacks of papers as tall as me. Take it to the ground floor, and then. Listening to how they showed me the roads of the labyrinth called bureaucracy, I was quietly horrified. I shouldn't have signed up for this. After tiring work as an errand boy, there was no need to show off, I croaked myself. I tiredly trudged home. The city slowly plunged into darkness, the streets gradually became empty. I reached my shelter slowly, looking at the empty streets on the outskirts. Here, unlike other places, there were few poor people, as evidenced by the fact that even on the outskirts there were quite beautiful houses. Only I distinguished myself here by setting up a camp in the forest, and then migrating underground. Entering the shelter, I looked at the remaining clone. The other 3 had already disappeared, and this one was getting ready, and I caught him with the last seals made in his hand. "Well, how was the date?" the clone asked sarcastically, making him want to punch him in the face. "Yes, what is it?" "This woman almost turned me into a slave," I groaned, leaning back on the bed. "Well, it's my own fault. He asked for a job himself. You could have helped your clones. instead of clearing other people's rubble, the clone said displeasedly, and then disappeared. I almost passed out from the flow of information, but was able to stabilize my consciousness in time. AKO squeaking on the ceiling did not add to the mood. Eat, she conveyed mentally. Sighing, I take off my outerwear, remaining in only shorts. Slowly flying up to me, AKO lightly bit my neck, starting to suck out chakra. 6 months later. Level +1. A notification popped up in front of me, which I immediately hastened to close, after which I left the dungeon, once again feeling Kushina's excitement. I just finished the first special level dungeon, which I was sincerely happy about. With each level I spent more and more time completing. If the easy level took only 2 days, then I spent a week on the medium level. And then, when I went to the hard level, I crapped myself, because the average level of the monsters there was higher than mine. And the boss. So I had to replay the middle level again. I had to spend a month on the hard level, but the special one took 3 months. I had to make concessions to Shijo-san, giving him a decent discount, but now I didn't care much about money. I earned just a huge amount of capital, which may be useful to me in the future to restore the clan. The duration of the passage was explained by 2 factors. The first factor was monsters. If on easy the main crowd were zerglings, then on medium I had to deal with hydralisks with their spikes, and on heavy I also had to deal with cockroaches. The first time I almost glued my fins together due to the attack of a cockroach, which I thought was dead. The special one surprised me by the fact that they all became 20% stronger and had something like intelligence. The second reason is the scale of the dungeon map. I jumped to conclusions when I said that the first map was big. The special one turned out to be so huge that I spent most of my time searching. Knows how many years I would have spent searching for the Zerg if they had not gathered in one place. Well, enough about the bad. 6 months of training did not pass without a trace. I was already level 49. At 50th something new will open up, because AKO, who reached level 50th yesterday in the dungeon, was able to get a new class. She was now the Dark Energy Mouse. It probably sounds pretentious, but the small black crystals on AKO's forehead and limbs indicated that the name justified itself. The darkness that the bat emitted in the sense of darkness was several times greater than even that of the Nanao I saw 3 months ago. Well, that's according to my calculations. In fact, 4 times less time passed here, which was good, because it was necessary to leave here as quickly as possible. Shijo received huge reserves of fuel, which should be enough for the period of the war that has already begun, and now I need to test my strength in the real world. Over the past time, Shijo has approached me with missions twice. I completed the first mission quickly, but the second was on the verge of a foul. The whole point is that I decided to test my strength against 3 Chunin, without using the aura of darkness and AKO. Well, then I spent 3 days in one hole, struck by the air pressure. I won, but this time I celebrated my victory especially. After all, for the first time I went through a serious battle without using my cheating trump card. The goal of the mission was achieved and the Chunin were absorbed. It's good to see you, Tatsuya-san. Mabui slowly walked into the room, interrupting my thoughts. 5 people sat around the table. A pumped-up dark man with grayish hair and green eyes looked at the envelope lying in front of him with a frown. A young girl sat nearby, glaring at an old man sitting on the opposite side with an elderly woman. They sat with their eyes closed, as if they were not participating in this meeting at all. Who will explain to me what happened there? The big man almost growled, throwing the letter into the center of the table. Reikage-sama, we haven't received information from the land of Tea for a month now. We wanted to send more shinobi, but Konoha has already completely closed the border, and it is not possible to pass unnoticed, announced the 5th person in this room, a tall man with brown hair. This Konoha. She is already torn in the war with Iwa and Suna. The Reikage spoke with rage in his voice. Calm your anger, hey. Konoha may be at war with these two, but everyone can clearly see that it is not sand and rock that are winning. Konoha has enough strength to close the entire border, the elder croaked without opening her eyes. The Raikage glanced at her irritably, but remained silent. Elder hero, what do you say? He turned to the second elderly man, who after the question only sighed loudly. We could not expect that the country of T would resort to blackmail. But what evidence do they have that they have caught the right person? The old man raised an eyebrow. The Raikage just grinned, throwing some object towards the elder. He raised his hand, easily grabbing it. The object turned out to be a ring, upon seeing which Hiro's eyes opened in surprise. You gave this ring to that feudal lord to raise motivation? The girl next to the Kage smiled sarcastically. The elder seemed to have aged 5 years at once. But I didn't know, the elder muttered, feeling how everyone's eyes were now burning through him. It doesn't matter. Because of such a trifle, that you without a second thought gave into the hands of some petty feudal lord, even such a weak country as Chai has a trump card against us, the girl answered sarcastically, from whose appearance it was clear that this old man was her annoyed me with something. The elder sighed bitterly, after which he waved the sleeve of his long cloak. Minus we can send specialists to remove unnecessary people. Minus dear elder hero. Have you forgotten what Sidio just said? Konoha has closed its borders. I'll send Ryu. The girl who wanted to say something fell silent when she heard this name. Are you sure, hero? The elderly woman asked excitedly. No, Tomoko. But do I have a choice? The elder sighed once again, after which he motioned to someone. Whispering instructions into the ear of the masked man who was right in front of him, Hiro handed the ring into his hands, after which the subject disappeared. Wait. Our people are still there. The man next to the Raikage suddenly exclaimed. It's good that you reminded me of this. Eliminate them too, the elder gave the order. But they are our shinobi, the man protested. Enough, Sidio. Hit the Raikage's table so that cracks appeared on it. They can no longer be saved. On the contrary, they can become another trump card in the hands of the enemy, if they are no longer corpses, said Tomoko. Sighing bitterly, Sidio lowered his head, mentally apologizing to Mabui. She was on his team when he was a genin captain. Apparently, she was destined to die there. AKO, I'm so sick of all this. I groaned, sitting down in the corner of the workshop, where 4 clones were now busy. But the burden will come from them. Is everything that bad? Asked the mouse, sitting on my shoulder. After petting my pet on the head, I leaned back on the wooden chair, enjoying a moment of idleness. Minus hey, original. Since you're not busy, maybe you can help? One of the clones called out to me, who hastened to turn away. Catching my gaze full of pain. Don't touch him. He went on a date with Nanao, another said sarcastically, after which all the clones laughed at the same time. Stop laughing. And in general, finish quickly, otherwise you'll want to sleep. Well, go to sleep, who's stopping you? We'll wake you up when we're done. I know how you will, wake me up. Again, you'll unwind at the same time, yawning, I look at how the clones methodically stamp out seals. Not without this, one smiled, without looking up from his work. And I thought about my role. On the one hand, I exploit the clones, turning them into free labor. On the other hand, all the consequences still fall on me. I don't know why I thought about this only now, but, already falling asleep, I wanted to fill my head with thoughts about at least something. Alas, I was never able to fall asleep. More precisely, signals from the barrier at the entrance in the form of vibration made me stand up sharply. Who is he? This someone is clearly not one of Shijo's subordinates. His people will not try to break through. AKO, get ready to attack. I activate additional barriers while the clones try to quickly cover the supply of seals. There is no time to seal. Yes, the dark mouse quickly hovers on the ceiling, preparing to attack from the shadows. A fairly dark room allowed this. With a crunch, one of the barriers fell, after which I watched in amazement as layers of the barrier were destroyed. No, what shocked me was not the fact that it could be destroyed. I'm fine with the CVS. I hope, but the fact that the barriers just crushed. This person must be very skillful. With a crash, the door flew inward, after which some piece of paper was thrown into my dungeon. Understanding its purpose, I quickly jumped to the side, after which I closed my eyes. I managed to avoid the consequences of a flash from the press, but not a sneaky stab in the back. From the force put into the blow, I almost flew off, crashing into my own clone. The missing clone saved me from hitting the wall, for which I was grateful. Jumping to my feet, I waved the kunai in front of me. Suddenly I hit someone. So he's also invisible? Who? Eliminating me? Shijo? Kyumo? I jump as far as possible, noticing subtle distortions in the air nearby. With a pop, a scroll appears, from which I pull out the unconscious body of that girl. Show yourself, otherwise I will kill her. The kunai was pressed to the girl's throat, but I stared forward, waiting for the enemy's actions. I wouldn't kill the girl, but it's easy to take advantage of her position as a prisoner. To my surprise and relief, the enemy appeared. He was a tall man with a simple porcelain mask on his face. The clothes were gray, apparently made of leather. Gray skin? Unknown beast or simple paint job? TCH, I found something to think about. Long copper-colored hair was also clearly visible. I would even say red hair. The enemy stopped. But the very next second, some kind of electric snake rushed towards me and this white-haired woman, and after it the man sent a dozen kunai with a seal on the handle. Well. He didn't come to save her. -AKO. A bat dives at the enemy's head at terrifying speed. Taking advantage of the moment, I leave the girl on the ground, after which I rush to help the pet. Approaching a fairly close distance, I barely deflect to the side the swing of the short sword with which the man managed to fight off AKO. Having poured half my reserve into the aura of darkness, I sharply activate the skill, after which the man freezes for a moment, and several images appear in my mind. Barely dodging the enemy's attacks, Suzuna tries to delay the oncoming squad, allowing her family to escape. A loud scream is heard from behind, making him turn his head. He recognized this voice. What he saw made the man freeze in shock for a moment, after which Suzuna roared with rage, almost dissecting the assassin who had approached from behind. The attackers took advantage of this, hitting him on the back of the head and forcing him to fall to his knees. It doesn't hurt. But a surge of chakra in the back of my head made my consciousness go blank. Looking at the bleeding family he desperately tried to protect, the man breaks down in tears. Knock out this Uzumaki. One of the enemy shinobi yelled. And Suzuna only looked with bitterness at the dead bodies of his wife and daughter, as well as the burning village. Uzushio. Wait. Are you Uzumaki? I exclaimed, looking at the man, who, having recovered from the shock, jumped to the side, slowly disappearing. Without wasting time, I removed the mark of the change in my hair, returning my usual scarlet color. I'm an Uzumaki too. The man didn't say anything to this, he just appeared again, canceling his technique. He looked at me for a long time, after which, he instantly launched a pair of kunai. I sharply nod to AKO, who again ties up the man while I dodge the throwing iron. I make a dash towards Suzuna. He is so aware of himself, after which I begin to help the bat. Mabui slowly came to her senses as she heard the sounds of metal colliding. Crouching from a sudden headache, she tried to remember recent events. Where am I? She would like to ask, but a stray kunai flying past instantly eliminated all questions. An incredible battle unfolded before our eyes. a young man, the girl recognized him as the kidnapper, with a bat fighting with a man in a mask. He was vaguely familiar to her, but her consciousness still had not fully returned to normal, so, picking up the kunai lying nearby, which was the one that almost made a hole in her, she decided to help the strange man. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Fool! The young man yelled, breaking the distance when Mabui decided to impale him on a kunai from behind. The man, taking advantage of the moment, also jumped to the side, dodging the sharp claws of a strange bat, after which, under the girl's terrified gaze, he disappeared. It's him. They wouldn't send him to help, only to kill him, the white-haired girl thought in panic, looking around in confusion. Stay close. The young man almost barked, after which he began to scatter seals. The battle will be long. Why? I look at the cracked mask behind which the face of my relative was hidden. He just grinned, sticking out his tongue. At first, almost offended by this, a second later I noticed the hieroglyphs on his language. So that's why. I still wouldn't kill you, Tatsuya, the man dumbfounded me, smiling faintly. How does he know me? Why don't I remember him? You know me, I breathed, looking into the man's brown eyes. Sorry. But I'm tired. I want peace, boy. He exclaimed with pain in his voice, tearing off his already half-broken mask. Finish me off. No. I can't. Forget that I'm an Uzumaki. There's so much blood on my hands. So much blood of innocent people. Please kill me. It took me so long to decide to die, but if it was at the hands of another Uzumaki, then even better. I will atone for my sins. If you don't do this, I'll kill myself. He reached for the kunai a meter away from us, but the next second he froze. With a sigh, I put away the kunai with which I finished him off. I seal Suzuna's body in an empty scroll, promising myself to bury his body on my native land. And, me? A melodic voice came from behind. The voice was frightened, and, turning around, I saw a girl covered with small scratches looking at me with fear. Or rather, on my hair. I restore the hair seal and then approach her. What's your name anyway? It turned out a bit rude, but what can I do? I'm angry. I found a relative and immediately lost him. What kind of luck do I have? A cold wave instantly washes away unnecessary emotions, after which, sighing loudly, I sit down next to the shuttered girl. Well? Mabui. Mabui. I don't have a last name. I see. And my name is Tatsuya. I look at the white-haired girl, who was slowly coming to her senses. As you already understand, a member of the Uzumaki clan. What will happen to me? She sighed bitterly. You hid the fact that you are an Uzumaki. And then I found out. What do you think? Maybe some options? I looked her straight in the eyes. What should I do with you? I don't want to die dishonored. Am I just beg for this? Mabui said somehow. What? I was left in a precipitate. Seriously? She decided that I could rape her? Although according to the realities of this world everything is normal. Although what this world means, this happens in all worlds. Yes. I want to save. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling all over. Young. It is obvious that she is not ready for this. I mean, to work as a shinobi. No matter how many people you kill, torture or rape, which is not far from torture, is another case. What can you get out of her? In a good way. That is, not in this context. Perverted thoughts, get out of my head. Honor, that is. Do you value her? I ask, sitting down next to her. Now, next to her, I felt strange. And he behaved strangely. She is a prisoner. Exactly. This is how I should behave. Everything is correct, answer. Why yes. Listen. I want to give you a choice, I say, pulling out a kunai from the seal. As you already guessed, you found out something that wasn't worth learning. Now you are a problem for me. But your words about honor are not without perverted logic. So which will you choose? Death or violence? I slightly influence her with an aura of darkness that causes fear. Death. Although she mumbled, she didn't think about it even for a second. Commendable. With a quick movement I put a stamp on her forehead. Now you work for me. I am your master. If you disobey, you will explode. If you try to run away, you will explode. If you make a movement in my direction, you will explode. If you show character, you will explode. And if you are not afraid of death, then I know that for you it will be worse than death. Get up. She stood on shaky legs, holding on to the wall. Mabui. Beautiful name, Mabui. This man, he came to eliminate both you and me. This means your country doesn't need you. Remember this. Now we'll go somewhere. Behind me. Master. She's the enemy, AKO flew out from the corner of the room. I know. Everything is fine. My intuition tells me that I will need it. Understood. Where are you going? To Shijo. The fact that this subject broke through to my hideout with the aim of eliminating me means that the feudal lord is most likely already dead. And there he found out about who was involved in this and where he was. That is, me. We need to find out the details and win back the corpse of our brother. Let's go. Hello, Nanao-san, I greeted the girl who was sorting through another pile of papers. I left just recently, and there's already such a heap here. Nanao looked strangely at Mabui, who was standing behind me, and then turned her gaze to me. We only saw each other recently, Tatsuya-san, she said, returning to her business. I just wanted to discuss something with Shijo-san. He's in his office. Okay. Thank you, Nanao-san. Already a couple of meters from the office, I stopped and then looked at Mabui. Wait here. You'll come in when I call. As you say, Tatsuya-sama, the white-haired girl nodded to me, after which I, knocking and waiting for the word, come in, quickly rushed through the door. Oh, Tatsuya. I just wanted to talk to you, Shijo began in a serious tone, activating the soundproofing barrier I had drawn. I believe, Shijo-san, I know the reason for your concern. Is the feudal lord already dead? Okay, sit down, he pointed to the chair in front of him, which I immediately sat down on. So you already know? I know what? Tatsuya, don't make a fool of yourself. You know that the feudal lord was killed, right? Actually, I really didn't know. It was just an assumption, since I was also attacked. Shijo raised his eyebrows in surprise. Minus how did they find out about you? I guess I wasn't the killer's target. Ah, my new subordinate. Minus subordinate? Mabui, come in, the door opened slightly, and a dark-skinned girl with white hair entered the room. Shiju looked at her with interest. And what interested the killer? Well, maybe that she was once a cloud shinobi. What? Shijo suddenly jumped up from his seat, looking at the girl in disbelief. During that mission where I got you a feudal lord, I began, watching as Shijo waved his hand, and a couple of silhouettes behind Mabui disappeared. Promptly, that's where I caught her. And why didn't you give it to us? Well, it would hardly be useful. She's just a pawn, just following orders. She knows nothing more than your feudal lord knows. So you've already managed to interrogate her, Shijo nodded, sitting back down. But why did you need her if she is a pawn? It's simple. Shouldn't I test my developments on you? I grinned, looking at Mabuya's pale face. Apparently, the expression on the girl's face satisfied Shijo's curiosity. Of course, interfering with the seal master's experiments is more expensive for himself, and he waved his hand. Okay. Let's say I believed you. But I think that's not all you came for. Yes. About that killer, I drew out the end, feigning thoughtfulness. Do you know who this is? Better. I already managed to kill him. Shijo's eyes widened, and he asked with anticipation. What do you want for his corpse? Sorry, but I can't give you the corpse. And why? The man looked at me doubtfully. I need him for one thing. But I can provide his things. I think they will help you just as much. Shijo carefully watched my face, as if looking for something. Okay. And what do you want for them? Legalization of my subordinate, of course. Okay. 5 months later. Mabui turned out to be an obedient and quiet girl. Of course, she doesn't do this voluntarily, but she seems to have gotten used to my company. So, I should answer her, and make her happy with something. Mabui. We're leaving today. As you say, the girl nodded, and her look made it clear that the news was not unexpected. I don't understand. Mabui. Did you know we were leaving this place? Yes. I saw you packing your things and was waiting for your words. Oh, that's how it is. That means there's nothing suspicious. Okay, go get ready, I nodded, watching AKO. My summoner was hanging from the ceiling at that time, sniffing at something. I'm already ready, Tatsuya-san. Okay. Give your things here, otherwise it will be inconvenient to carry them. Mabui quickly went to get her things, after which I sealed them in a seal on my wrist. I've already talked to Shijo, which means there won't be any complications with the land of tea. Coming out of the dungeon, which served as my home, albeit for a short but significant time, I activate the seals of concealment and protection. Seals of concealment have become one of my favorites, since they can hide any inanimate objects, as long as there is enough chakra. Thus, almost invisible, only the curvature of the air gives it away. Kunai and shuriken could cause trouble for my opponents. During this time, Mabui also did not sit still and now, judging by my calculations, was a solid Tokubetsu Jonin who could cause great trouble for the average Jonin. Since she was my subordinate, and betrayal would have led to her death, I found the required seal. I decided to help her master Fuin. Nothing complicated, a few protective barriers, paralysis seals and similar seals. The speed of mastering Fuin Jutsu was average. After all, this was a huge bonus for me to study, but her ninjutsu was very good. Its main element was lightning, its secondary element was water. An excellent combination, which Mabui proved by frying a dozen of my clones in training. I also became interested in her teleportation technique, which Mabui learned to actively use in battle. However, the speed of execution left much to be desired. But alas, what was needed was sky-high control, which, to my surprise, Mabui had. If she were an Uzumaki, she would have mastered the chakra chains in a minute. Mabui herself didn't even seem to miss her country. She only humbly followed my orders, which made me even wary that my seal had not destroyed the girl's personality. But no, according to Fuin's description, nothing like that should happen, so I just accepted the fact that my subordinate doesn't mind remaining her. We were heading to Jiro Island, which was quite close to the land of tea. The merchants agreed to give us a ride, for a fee, of course. The island did not belong to any country. The inhabitants made their living by farming. Judging by rumors, the island is ruled by some bandits who receive a certain payment for protection. Why did I sail away from the mainland? The war has already begun. But I don't want to go there yet, so I decided to travel, to get to know this world better, so to speak. Moreover, I have not seen such places in the canon. After the island of Jiro, I will go to the country of the seas, and from there, by the end of the war, I will move closer to the country of water. I think by then I will have gathered enough strength, and it will be possible to begin collecting the Uzumaki. We are approaching the island, the ship's captain, a tall, broad-shouldered man with black hair with gray strands, informed us. Jumping to the top of the mast, I saw a huge island. There were quite a lot of reefs, and there was a possibility of breaking. No wonder the captain became so serious. Contrary to my fears, we reached the docks without incident, and now the merchants were hastily unloading their goods, and Mabui and I decided to find a place to stay for the night. It was already getting dark, and I didn't want to be left without a roof over my head. I have a tent, of course, but a bed is much better than a sleeping bag. And I'm tired of living far from civilization. We were able to find accommodation for the night in a nearby tavern. I don't know what they call it, but the place was a complete copy of a medieval fantasy tavern, except that there were no adventurers and magicians. The bulk of the crowd here were ordinary townspeople who loved to drink, and a couple of merchants who had arrived with us from Chai. We took only one room, so as not to attract unnecessary attention to our very rich person, and it's also safer. Who knows what kind of bison are hiding here? And Mabui was already used to me, so there were no problems with embarrassment. Except that my body reacted, in a way that a teenager's body should. I have a 14-year-old body, so nothing surprising. You just have to be able to hide things. No matter how much of a villain I may appear in other people's eyes, I will not stoop to an involuntary relationship. Even with his subordinate. Taking off my cloak and sitting down on the double bed, I look at the girl. Mabui was arranging her things, and she did it with all diligence, causing strange feelings in me. I don't know what these feelings were, but they were very bright. Mabui, we need to find out about the circumstances here. Yes, Tatsuya-san, she nodded, and then quickly fled out the door. Deciding not to sit idle either, I follow her to chat with people on the lower floor. The tavern was a two-story, quite large building next to the docks. Once at the stairs, I hear a conversation that made it clear that my subordinate was in trouble. "Beauty, if you refuse us, you will put yourself in big trouble," a rough, hoarse voice rang out. Cackling was heard behind him, clearly showing that the bandits had no sense of humor at all. I always wondered, do they laugh because they think it's funny? Or did you just want to support your friend? Got distracted. However, let her try to figure it out herself. If something goes wrong, I will intervene. In the meantime, let him learn to deal with all sorts of garbage on his own. "Leave me alone," Mabui said in a cold tone. "Come on, Beauty, I can pay. Stop messing around with her." "Grab her," said another, thinner voice. A few seconds later, a scuffle was heard outside the door, after which I prepared to attack. But my fears were in vain, and a middle-aged man who crashed into the slightly open door confirmed that Mabui was quite capable of figuring it out on her own. Taijutsu is not her main specialty, but Mabui is as skilled in hand-to-hand combat as I am. I experienced her skills myself when we trained together. Therefore, it is not surprising that the impudent people quickly grabbed the Lula. "You'll regret it, sh.ha." One of the attackers shouted. After which everyone quickly left. So, apparently, there is not much to talk in the tavern right now, so I returned to my room, where Ako was currently sleeping. To keep myself occupied with something, I started reading literature from the subconscious. Since it was not a skill, it took a long time to read, but it was what I needed. Sometimes you want to get distracted and immerse yourself in a completely different story. Since I was reading inside my mind, from the outside it looked as if I was just sitting with my eyes closed. Because of this, there were often embarrassments with Mabui, because I never told her about the library. Having emerged from my subconscious an hour later, I saw Mabui looking attentively at me, sitting on a chair by the window. "Did you find out something interesting?" I looked into her eyes. The rumors were confirmed. The port, like the entire island, is ruled by a criminal organization. They call themselves Bloody Wolves. Unfortunately, I was never able to find out the quantity. But I think about 300 or 400 people. Fuin is almost never used on the island. This is the prerogative of the rich. Minus anything else? The traders are leaving in 2 days. Well, let it be. We'll still be staying here for a much longer time. You better tell me, were there any problems? Mabui hesitated slightly, and then firmly said. No. Are you sure? Yes, and why is she lying? Okay then. Rest for now, and I'll go downstairs. As you say, Tatsuya-san, the white-haired girl answered, immediately starting to undress. Noting the good-sized breasts for a 16-year-old girl, I quickly leave the room. When I touch the door, I leave a seal of soundproofing. Let him sleep in silence. Come out, creature. A man's voice rang out, and a crowd of people burst into the tavern. But the crowd that tried to climb to the second floor was stopped by a black-haired young man. The crowd, not a group, because a group cannot be so disorganized, looked at the brat in bewilderment. Boy, step aside, otherwise you'll get hit in the face. A 2-meter-tall guy stepped forward. Tatsuya looked doubtfully at the men, who even together had less darkness than the genin he had met in the past. Tatsuya had already realized that darkness is not created by dark intentions, although shinobi with them have more darkness than light ones, but is only an approximate indicator of the level of power. So, the darkness of these gentlemen made it clear that they were ordinary people. Why? He turned to the big man, who towered over the by no means small Tatsuya. Listen, kid, someone offended my friends, and I'm going to take revenge. Oh, so these brave men got it from the girl and complained to others? Tatsuya grinned, noticing the recent non-rapists. Oh, you. The big man roared, after which, he was kneed in the stomach. Shut up. The crowd piled on the young man, deciding to take him en masse. But the next moment they looked in bewilderment at the 5 identical guys. He's a shinobi. One of the attackers shouted, rushing into the street. A chair flew into his back, knocking him off his feet. From here you will come out feet first, the clones grinned. With a scream, another of the rapists crashed into the tavern door, after which Tatsuya sighed and looked into the eyes filled with fear and hatred of the men lying on the ground. The battle, or rather, the beating of the crowd, ended on the street, where a dozen failed bandits were lying in the dust. Get out and don't show your face to me, the young man said coldly, after which he noticed that there was no one left on the street. Everyone hastily locked themselves in their houses and closed the windows. Minus, what's going on here? Has their boss arrived? Tatsuya looked around. They should have called me. I would have sorted it out myself, a quiet female voice came from behind. Turning around, Tatsuya saw a girl leaning on the door of the tavern. On Mabui's shoulder, Ako squeaked indignantly, whose approximate speech can be translated as, again, I missed everything interesting. And what did they want from you? They wanted to rape me, Mabui stammered. Tatsuya involuntarily admired the beauty of the girl, but quickly drove away unnecessary thoughts. That's it, he tried to feign surprise. It almost happened. You knew, right? And that's why they left, leaving me to rest? Who knows? The conversation was interrupted by a rather sharp, rude voice. Hey, you! Tatsuya and Mabui turned towards the voice, after which they saw a man with a menacing crowd behind him. Here comes the boss, Tatsuya whispered, after which a rather strange-looking weapon appeared in his hand. It could have been mistaken for a long braid, if not for the blade on the other side, located at the end of the blade. With a soft vibration, the blades began to glow black, after which Tatsuya confidently twirled the scythe in his hand. Scythe of Warp. Rarity, unique. Owned by Uzumaki Tatsuya. Weapon of the Zeratai clan of Dark Templars, renowned for their skill. Passes psi energy /chakra/mana/life force. Plus 5% to agility when used. Plus 5% to strength when used. Tatsuya was then surprised that he had blades on his scythe. The Dark Templars managed without them, creating blades from pure energy. He received the weapon as a reward for completing the difficult level of the first dungeon. Over the course of months, he was able to more or less master the use, but he understood that he was inferior to even the friliest Protoss in wielding a scythe. "So you attacked my guys?" The man approached, and Tatsuya could clearly see his face. Short light brown hair, amazing blue eyes. His face was covered in scars, and the fresh red welts showed that he had received some of them recently. He was dressed in ordinary leather pants, and preferred to leave the top open, showing off his sculpted abs. Aura, Jonin. An unpleasant opponent, but not that strong. "Mabui, there are those two behind you. AKO, take care of the rest," I gave instructions, and then rushed towards my opponent. He probably intended to scratch his tongue, showing his coolness and authority. But I'm already tired of it. Mabui ran towards two Chunin, apparently, the deputy leader. Mabui is a strong Tokubetsu Jonin, so he will take two weak Chunin with ease. Meanwhile, AKO was already using her new ability, increasing in size. Of course, this ability consumes a decent amount of chakra from both AKO and me, but we were still in the black. With the help of this ability, AKO will be able to fight on equal terms with the huge creatures from the cannon in the future. "Well, boy, are you ready for punishment?" the leader said, grinning, dodging my slashing blow. The next blow was horizontal, and the Jounin only leaned back a little, running away from the deadly blade. But the second blade was woven in for a reason, and the leader, who did not expect this at all, received a deep cut in his left shoulder, and then only thanks to his reaction. "That's it," he said through his teeth, clutching the wound and trying to retreat. But I didn't want to give him such an opportunity, so I began a series of quick blows, aiming for the head or stomach. The Jonin pulled out two small axes and began to fight back, but his left side became his weak point and he missed another slash. Suddenly he jumped back to the maximum available distance, after which he began to make seals. Channeling more chakra into the scythe, causing it to vibrate, I made a dash towards the Jonin, watching out of the corner of my eye how the 3-meter-long AKO was literally tearing apart a crowd of bandits, and the two Chunin were confidently being pushed back by Mabui, pelting them with techniques. I was about to slash my scythe at the defenseless Jounin, but something blocked my path. The second side of the scythe also missed its target, and the leader, who caught the moment, tried to hack me to death with his axe. I activate the aura of darkness to the maximum, after which I jump away, noticing two more dark clots around the Jounin. The silhouettes of two large creatures appeared in the smoke and blood-red wolves came forward. Baring their teeth at me, they waited for another brother, and then rushed to attack. "Do you understand what the name of our brotherhood means? We have a rare summoning technique, summoning blood wolves." The leader came out with a smile, holding his left shoulder. "My name is Takeshi. Remember this name, because it is I who will send you to the next world." The wolves rushed at me with a roar, their mouths wide open. A swing of the scythe hits one's paw, but the other one almost grabs my leg. There is a flash of an aura of darkness, and the creature freezes for a moment, which I take advantage of by cutting off its head. The second wolf growled and then charged at me. He was immediately joined by his recovered brother. I didn't understand. I thought it was all that simple. The Jounin laughed, watching us and, apparently, controlling these creatures. Since he controls. I accelerate to the limit, instantly finding myself one step away from the Jounin. The scythe blade almost cut it off, but instead I split the blood wolf into two parts. He didn't even think about dying, quickly regenerating. "No, that won't work. I'll run out of steam faster than that Jounin will spend his chakra." Manifestation of darkness. A huge amount of darkness came out of the hand, instantly overtaking the two wolves along with the jounin. Die already! I yelled, looking at how the leader, who was pretty emaciated and had lost his muscles, was crawling towards me. You won't wait, he wheezed, after which those same two wolves ran towards me. And the feeling of darkness showed that these were the last drops of the man's chakra. A swing of the double-sided scythe, and the red wolves evaporated in white smoke. The leader of the blood wolves met my gaze with confidence and challenge. With the same eyes, he went to the other world. Shaking off the blood from his braid and calling the weapon back, Tatsuya looked back. One Chunin was unconscious, and the second was barely holding on and seemed ready to run away at any moment. But Mabui did not give him a chance to retreat, pressing him with lightning and taijutsu techniques. The Chunin suddenly hesitated when he saw the defeated leader, which the white-haired woman took advantage of, knocking out the enemy. AKO had already dealt with the crowd, and now, having returned to her previous size, she flew to the owner. What are we going to do with them? Mabui pointed at the two Chunin. She was the only one who spared the enemies. Do as you wish, I shrugged, and then retired to the tavern. Mabui followed me hesitantly. Aren't you going to kill them? I asked, stroking AKO. The bat squeaked quietly. No. What if they decide to take revenge? What then? They won't do it, Mabui said, shaking her head. How can you be sure of this? Because. I don't know. I just want to believe that they will learn their lesson. Okay, I nodded to her and AKO. AKO squeaked and then flew away. Where is she going? Mabui asked, casting a suspicious glance at AKO as she flew away. Yes, so. Finish them off, right? Mabui smiled sadly, after which she was the first to enter the tavern. I stopped. Why do I feel like I did something inhuman? They were the first to start. They tried to kill me, and no one guarantees that they will not take on this with more powerful support. Eliminating a potential problem is the right thing to do. With these thoughts, I entered the tavern, where the workers were hastily putting the hall in order. Oh yes, I left quite a legacy. The owner of the tavern was giving out instructions while sitting at the bar. Seeing me approaching, he instantly turned pale and jumped up from his seat. Mr. Tatsuya. Mr. Tatsuya, I apologize for the fact that we are hosting you in such a place. What are you talking about? I did it all. How much do I have to pay? Not at all. He exclaimed nervously, looking at me with fear. He won his reputation. At that moment, AKO returned, causing the tavern owner's face to begin to take on a greenish tint. Well, this is understandable, it was not I who killed the whole gang, but AKO. It is the massacre that causes the greatest fear, and not the typical macaque with the leader. I entered the room in high spirits, having tried half the menu in the tavern. When I decided to pay, the tavern owner tried his best to dissuade me, but I managed to convince him. I don't like feeling like a debtor. Although, judging by the prices of the dishes and how much I paid, they gave me a huge discount. Mabui lay quietly on the bed, covered with a blanket. She looked sweet and mysterious. It's like an ice maiden in my thoughts. Pfft, I could barely contain my laughter, realizing what I had just thought about. And when did I become a connoisseur of beauty? Minus Tatsuya-san? Mabui abruptly rose from the bed, after which she looked at me with curiosity with her dark green eyes. Yes? Minus, did you say something? No. Then. I have a question. I prepared to answer why I killed these two and generally explain the reason for my cruelty in general. Yes? How long will we stay here? Minus, I like this place. Let's stay a week or two. We hastily boarded the ship, which resembled a xebec. Having adjusted my huge, and captured only for show, backpack, I follow the captain of this ship. Mabui, with AKO on his shoulder, follows me, slowly scanning the docks. It's been a week and a half since I first arrived at the gyro, and I think it's time to leave this place. We must travel further. The captain of the merchant ship agreed to take us on board. It becomes a tradition to travel by sea with traders. Thank you for agreeing to help, Koichi-san, I expressed my gratitude, examining the crew. Severe men with swords and other cold iron in their belts. Everyone wears practical clothing that does not restrict movement. Of all the people, only Captain Koichi himself resembled a merchant, a tall man with long black hair. His clothes were quite expensive and beautiful. Come on. You paid me generously, he smiled, and then left to give orders. Something doesn't fit. How is it, a merchant ship with a full crew of combat-ready people, and where there are no traces of the merchants themselves? While thinking, I didn't even notice how they brought me to or rather, our cabin, small, with a double bed. A couple of cabinets and some kind of illustration on the wall, quite a modest setting. Which, in general, again does not fit with the image of merchants. The ship managed to set sail and sail at quite a decent speed to the island of Imuri, closest to this place. Kanahagakure no Sato. Kushina and her team have been successfully completing D-rank missions for months now. Oddly enough, Minato was on the same team as her, as well as an inconspicuous girl named Momo. They quite managed to establish teamwork, and she even became friends with Minato, but the fact that missions alone would not get you closer to him put pressure on her. Kushina could not find a place for herself when the connection with him was cut off for weeks, or even months. What does he go through even if the connection is broken? Of course, she didn't quite understand what kind of connection it was, but the absence or weakening of the connection hardly meant anything good. It was the second that was happening now and happened 2 weeks ago. The connection was weakening. She could barely feel even a particle of emotion, and only one thing gave her hope: the connection had not disappeared. Sighing, she decided to finally convince the third to send them on a more difficult mission. I lay down on the bed while Mabui sat in the corner writing something. She's been writing a lot lately. I don't know what exactly, she refused to show it to me. Too personal. As we quickly sailed across the ocean, I thought about those inconsistencies in the merchants. On the one hand, they don't seem to be all sorts of charlatans. Sailors, even if they are dressed simply, are quite normal. No one turned around in all sorts of pirate rags. But doubts also arose. Firstly, again, there are only sailors here. I haven't found anyone wealthy here. It was as if there was no one in the cabins. As I noticed, there were a lot of them, except us. The captain, of course, disappeared into his cabin. But the rest are traders and travelers. At least someone. None of the sailors look like stevedores. No, they may have been carrying heavy objects. But the fact that everyone was wiry and not muscular was surprising. It was as if they were preparing only for battle. If they are really only fighters, then where are the rest? Who will carry the goods? They're heavy. Wait. They're heavy. And we are rushing at a decent speed. Not even that, the Shibika is not intended for trade. This is a warship. Mabui, get ready. We're trapped, I said, getting out of bed. Mabui just nodded and then put the book aside. He slowly opened the cabin door, and then gave Ako the order to stay. Tatsuya-san, the white-haired girl, pointed at my back. 2 ordinary sailors were chatting there, laughing. As I understand it, pirates. They noticed me, after which they quickly tried to make lenten faces. Hello, Tatsuya-sama. How did you rest? Asked one of them. A short, but strongly built, dark guy of about 25. The second one looked behind me, where Mabui was now standing. And this look was very understandable. Ah! He yelled when I hit him in the forehead. If you look at her like that again, I'll cut something off, I said in a calm tone. The second was about to take up arms when the first shook his head, grabbing his hand. As you say, the sailor almost growled. I need to talk to your captain. I turned to the young guy. His cabin is there, the guy pointed to the door not far from our cabin. Nodding to him, I head to the captain's cabin with Mabui. Out of the corner of my ear I managed to hear the conversation of two sailors. Let's see what he will say when I am in front of his eyes, muttered the second sailor, who was staring at Mabui. Quiet. The first one sked. Here's how things are. Everything needs to be sorted out as soon as possible. Koichi was quietly drinking his tea, looking at the navigation charts, when there was a knock on the door. Who's there? He barked, slightly dissatisfied. Tatsuya, a quiet but confident voice came from behind the door. Come in, Koichi said peacefully, internally reflecting on what brought this major to them. Despite the fact that the guy's clothes were simple, he learned that he had good money. And the whole point was that he easily agreed to the amount that the captain offered. And he asked for no small money. Almost twice as much as an ordinary ship asks for. And what did you need, Tatsuya-san? He asked. Inwardly, he winced at his voice. It was inconvenient to address a small kid like that, but what can you do for the sake of money? The captain turned his gaze to the white-haired girl behind the young man's back. Good, sheep. One thing was clear, this girl was the boy's bodyguard. The first step is to neutralize it, and he won't go anywhere. Well, I wanted to know something. Tatsuya came closer, smiling. And what exactly? How long were you going to pretend like this? Asked the guy. The smile turned into a grin. Even when he started asking again, it dawned on the captain. Without wasting any time, he grabbed Tatsuya, pressing the dagger to his neck. At the edge of his consciousness, he noted that the boy didn't even resist. Move away, creature. He yelled at the girl, who was looking at him warily, standing with a kunai in her hand. Drop your weapon and swallow this, otherwise your master will die. He poked the iron at Tatsuya's neck, threatening. As soon as the steel touched the skin, he flinched, after which, with a wild cry, he jumped away from the guy, swinging his blade like mad. How interesting, Tatsuya said with a grin, instantly finding himself next to the captain. Did you think I was weak? Tatsuya slammed his palm onto the captain's head, causing him to freeze. Mabui, I think it's time to take control of the ship. Yes, the girl nodded, after which she easily dragged the paralyzed captain onto the deck. Oddly enough, we did not meet a single sailor on the way, although it was daytime. All the sailors showed up on deck, where everyone was minding their own business. There were no shinobi at all, and a lot of people were required to control the ship. Listen, dogs. I shouted, adding shrill notes. If I was considered a weak daddy's boy, then I need to get used to the role. I have your captain. If you try to go against me, she will kill him. I pointed my finger at the frozen captain in Mabui's hand. She very impressively activated the seal on her elbow, and with a pop, a kunai appeared in her hand. Pathos, however. And, is he alive? Asked one of the sailors, looking at the captain. A slight nod from Mabui, and she removes the seal, after which the captain comes to his senses. His gaze locks on me, after which he opens his mouth in a silent scream. Kick to the back of the head from Mabui and he's quickly knocked out. Did everyone see it? And what will you do with us? There are more of us, cried one sailor, whom I recognized as a guy I had recently met. Do you think my girlfriend isn't strong enough to deal with a bunch of animals? I grinned. Mabui released the captain and then crossed her fingers. With a pop, the clones appeared next to her. Shadow clones. The sailors, apparently, were imbued with it, because the excitement that was beginning to grow quickly subsided, and everyone silently stared at me. Minus just do your job. Nothing more is required from you, I nodded, turning around. Dissatisfied, but having shoved this discontent far away, the sailors returned to their business while we returned to the cabin. In the cabin, I sealed the captain away from harm, after which, together with Mabui and Ako, offended by the fact that she missed everything, I went to the captain's cabin. It's more spacious there, and you can find the necessary information. Already in the captain's cabin, he began to search it. Mabui, meanwhile, was busy bringing the brave captain to consciousness in order to interrogate him. So, empty papers, all sorts of garbage about the ship's expenses, apparently issued by the first mate, again empty papers, a bundle. In the bundle there was a piece of leather on which some squiggles were imprinted, which I recognized as the location of the islands. The island we were sailing to was marked in red. What kind of pirates are so canonical? A treasure map, shabby-looking warriors, a maneuverable ship, everything literally screams that these are pirates. And I guessed halfway. As we found out from the map, and then checked with the captain, the island was not easy. There were rumors that there was a treasure there, quite a big one. And so, all sorts of adventurers began to sail there, who clearly wanted to appropriate this gold for themselves. Let's say someone found a treasure, the strange thing is that he didn't appropriate it for himself, but, why is this, someone, spreading information about it? There is only one conclusion, someone needed to gather everyone in one place. And who needs pirates and all sorts of dark personalities prowling in search of gold? Headhunters. These pirates are going to certain death. During the interrogation, it turned out that there were several girls in the hold. Selected back in the country of the bears, they were the ones on whom these gentlemen let off steam. And right now we were going there, to help the girls if possible, and if that didn't work out, to kill them. Out of the corner of my eye I noticed that Mabui was angry. I stop abruptly and then hold the girl. Mabui, you better not go there. But why? She stared at me in bewilderment. You shouldn't look at this. But, okay. So, having sent Mabui back, I entered the hold. Among the supplies, 3 girls were hanging on the wall. They had no clothes, but this did not arouse the slightest desire in me. With their appearance they evoked only pity. With cuts, bruises, and even then I can barely see in this crown, and even festering wounds all over my body. The ropes held them tightly, and it's even surprising that they lasted so long. Wait. One of them had red hair. Dirty, disheveled, but they were red. A wave of energy spread through my body, instantly calming me. How are you? I whispered, calling for a bottle of water. The girls opened their eyes at once and then stared at me. The red-haired girl opened her eyes wide, then smiled bitterly, closing them again. I'm sorry that you saw me like this, Tatsuya-sama. Nothing. I will save you all. I captured the ship, there's nothing for you. It's not worth it, Tatsuya-sama. At the last word the red-haired girl croaked, and I brought the liquid to her lips. Taking a sip of water, she continued. We don't want to live anymore. She opened her eyes, after which I saw such pain in her eyes that my heart seemed to stop for a moment. She is right. They will still commit suicide even if I save them. Your death will be quick and painless, I whispered, after which I touched their hands one by one. After a 5-second delay, the girls fell limply, before looking at me with gratitude. It's like something broke inside me. A certain line that forced me not to fall below the principles. Mabui met me in the cabin, where the seal with the captain was still there. Taking the scroll in my hand, I unseal the captain, and then touch his head. 5 seconds and he, too, dies. But, without letting Mabui understand what I was doing, I abruptly sealed the corpse. There will be a reward for his head, and money is never too much. He has already given us all the information. And his team, the team will cease to exist when we get to the island. Is everything okay? The girl asked excitedly. Yes. The girls asked for death. I gave it to them. Mabuya's gaze became gloomy. What did you do with it? She pointed to the scroll. Something that won't be superfluous, I answered evasively. Now, let's move on to serious problems. I wasn't worried about eavesdropping sailors. The soundproof barrier is there for a reason. Today they will come to kill us. Be ready. Yes. It happened even earlier than I expected. They popped in immediately, as soon as I went to bed, just a light snore, and several brave pirates entered the cabin, not taking into account that, oddly enough, it was not locked. And so, one raises a blade and cuts my neck. With a slight poof, the clone evaporated, and then I descended from the ceiling. Well, gentlemen? Do we wander around the cabins at night? Are we killing? Don't let people sleep. One couldn't stand it, screaming and rushing towards me with a sword. A swing of the scythe and he ends up with his neck cut. I immediately killed the second one in the face with a kunai. Have mercy! Shouted the third, sitting on the floor. The next swing of the scythe, and he no longer gets up. Oh, the carpet is ruined. AKO, you have a deck on you. Leave a dozen people to control the ship, and do with the rest as you wish. Mabui, you don't have to go out. AKO rushed to the deck with a squeak, and the girl just nodded, after which, with a barely noticeable grimace, she pointed to the corpses. I seal the corpses in a regular seal for storage, and throw the carpet into the corridor. It's time to go through the cabins and gather the people, so to speak. 5 minutes later I already went into the second cabin, where I killed everyone indiscriminately. I know, it's cruel. But it is precisely this language that these creatures understand. The language of power. Screams were heard from above, which made it clear that AKO was having fun. I go into the third cabin, where 2 pirates were drinking rum. What? One exclaimed, but a swing of his braid shortened him by a head. The second one immediately grabbed the saber and even parried one blow. But it's not for nothing that my scythe is so specific, so the next cutting blow to the leg made him fall to his knee. Another swing, and he falls, sprinkling the floor with his blood. It's time to go upstairs. Fortunately, the oil lamps provided normal lighting, and one could see how the 5-meter AKO easily threw people overboard, and tore some of them on the spot. That's enough, AKO-chan, I waved my hand dramatically, after which the mouse quickly returned to its previous size and sat on my shoulder. Well, gentlemen, pirates, let's talk. Still, you shouldn't have done this. Mabui looked at the devastated ship with dissatisfaction. After we reached the pier, I successfully sent all the pirates to feed the fish, so the Xebec now completely belonged to me. The question was, how can I deal with it? Hire a new crew? Money, of course, is not an issue, but I just don't like this option. It's short-lived. Then what remains? Do everything yourself. What is stopping me from mastering the skills of a sailor? Moreover, with clones, the issue of tracking all parts of the ship disappears. Okay, when we enter the city, I'll do that. Mabui, they wouldn't be any better if we spared them. And so I saved the poor fellows who would have become victims of these pirates. But why do you have to kill them? It could have been, here Mabui faltered. What can you do? Cut off their limbs and condemn them to a miserable existence? Of course, I don't mind, but you probably wouldn't appreciate it. And we can't just leave them like that. They have already spent half their lives carrying out their shady dealings. They robbed, raped, killed. They can't get out of the habit of it. Why did you decide this? Is it just me, or is Mabui showing too much emotion? Doesn't look like her. Because it's not so easily forgotten. The feeling of power over the lives of the helpless. The feeling of their own power, they reveled in it, even killing children. If we were ordinary people, I don't even want to think what they would do to you. But they didn't do anything. They were afraid of us. And when the opportunity arises, they will immediately stab you in the back. That's it, the conversation is over. Mabui silently turned towards the only settlement on this small island. The sleeping volcano gave a very atmospheric look, and the houses at its foot complemented the image. Even though the settlement was small, it was lively. Following the white-haired girl, I almost forgot to ask where we were going. Mabui, where are we going? The girl did not answer, and I grabbed her hand. She turned around. I don't know. So why are you going to an unknown area? How why? And who will reconnoiter the situation? In appearance it seemed that Mabui was really surprised, but in 6 months of living with her I learned a lot about her character and could say with confidence that she was offended. It's okay, he will understand and forgive, although there is nothing to forgive for. I did the right thing, and if I had gone back, I would have done the same. I would kill these pirates. Let's find a place to stay for the night first. I hope you don't mind. No, the girl answered after a long silence. I was about to turn to the nearest person when I was almost knocked off my feet by a boy. Oh, sorry. He bowed, and then left with his friends. I shook my head. Due to the fact that a massacre is planned here, I would get out of here along with my children if I were an ordinary person. Okay, it's not for me to worry about them. For the 3rd day now we have been spending the night in the local inn. Quite a decent place, which is surprising for such a small island. And in general, the city does not look like a place where Rubelovo will soon be located. An ordinary, unremarkable town with the same ordinary inhabitants. Mabui often went out on reconnaissance and interviewed locals, but the result was the same, nothing terrible happened in these places. Of course, some have heard about the treasure, but they just considered it ordinary stories. In general, nothing unusual. Unless there is a treasure on the other end of the island, next to which there is a whole bunch of people. Very similar to those who are now walking the streets. What can I say, the work was clearly professionals. If it weren't for the fact that I saw just a huge amount of darkness in the burial, I wouldn't have known that the city was under control. I don't even know who. This someone clearly took a big swing if for this he needed to massacre an entire city. By the way, one more fact, all of these killers, and they could not be anyone else, also had well-hidden reserves of chakra, because Mabui did not discover anything. I'm the cheater here, riding out in the dark. Mabui never learned about the peculiarities of the residents from me, since I decided to test her. If she can solve the mystery of this cursed island, then that means her ability to obtain information is at a higher level than mine. A little test, so to speak. It is also worth noting that in addition to us, all sorts of personalities stopped in the town who flew here from all over the Shiagaru Sea and Sokonosha No. Which is quite normal, considering the fact that Imuri Island is located right on the border of both seas. Pirates, thugs, bounty hunters, robbers of all stripes, everyone gathered here. The strange thing is that no one has yet gone for the treasure, and the residents themselves have not taken action. Now I watched as Mabui slowly walked through the open door, carrying a tray of food for 2. Ako slept under the ceiling, having drunk on my chakra. Therefore, in complete silence, soundproofing made it possible to ignore the bustle of the city. We started dinner. Nothing spectacular, just plain rice with fried fish and iced tea. Mabui didn't take her eyes off me the entire time. I found out everything, which means, okay, I'm a good girl. Mabui, don't look at me as if you're seeing me for the last time, I said, wrapping myself in a blanket. Mabui shuddered, after which she stared suspiciously at my satisfied face. So you knew everything, she sighed. I knew. But the fact that you hid everything. You know, I am increasingly haunted by thoughts that someone wants to betray me. What? And no, I just decided that. Okay, stop. Have you decided? Since when do you decide for us? Mabui, I hope there's no need to remind me that if I wish, you too. I ran my thumb along my neck, hinting at what would follow the you. I understand, Tatsuya-sama, the white-haired girl said in a gloomy tone. I scared you for nothing. She will now move away completely. I barely got close in 6 months, and then, with one sentence I crossed out my efforts. But putting her in her place was a necessary, albeit unpleasant, task. By the way, how did you guess about our residents? Their emotions. From the first day I noticed that they smacked of pretense, and their excessive simplicity. Everything was confirmed when I saw how that boy who crashed into you, on the second day, in a completely different voice, was talking about something with an old man. And then, he just killed him. Oh, they burned themselves, that is. And why didn't you tell me about this? You would definitely get involved in this. And I wanted to quickly get out of here. It means that you were guided by completely reasonable thoughts. Okay, forgiven. But from now on, no more initiatives on your part. Yes, she nodded quickly, after which she turned away and fell asleep. It's going to be a long night. Quest generated. Cursed Island. Goal. Kill all bounty hunters. Kill all pirates. Reward. Plus 75,000 experience. Achievement Reaper. Skill, waning a double-sided scythe. Penalty for refusal/failure. Variable. This is exactly what happened when I silently slipped out of the window. The quest was unexpected, but very pleasant, because it was practically no different from what I was going to do anyway. I intend to kill everyone and consume them. I need strength. And these hunters were sent to massacre, since the number of pirates was also not small. I don't feel sorry for the pirates themselves at all, who would feel sorry for these creatures without morals, you insects. The cold energy of the gamer's mind was just right. Otherwise it doesn't make me smile to walk around in berserker mode. By the way, I didn't take AKO with me. I want to see what I'm worth in a large-scale battle. Having accepted the quest, I jump off the roof, after which I dive into the nearest alley. Apparently, I came out on the very day when the massacre began, because nothing else can explain the large-scale fight here. And the screams heard from all over the city hinted that the bloody harvest had already begun. I suddenly went behind the back of one resident, who was quickly putting together seals and, judging by the often flashing tiger seal, clearly wanted to smack the enemy with katan. A swing of the kunai, and the resident successfully dodges, sending a bunch of senbon at me. I jerk to the side, and the next moment I block the kick of another resident. He was about to use his fists, but I quickly intercepted them. A moment later he freezes, and I roll away from the pair of kunai. The pirates, who decided that I was one of their own, quickly tied up the thrower in battle. Meanwhile, I get closer to the next resident, making a furious swing of the scythe that appears in my hand. The hunter, who did not expect this, was seriously wounded in the stomach, and without wasting any time, I quickly applied absorption. The killer dries up before my eyes, and I get a couple of pluses to my chakra and a fraction of a % to my affinity with fire. Okay, time to continue. 2 hours. 2 gr. For an hour I rushed around the city, helping the pirates, and then slaughtering them. I already had more than 200 kills to my name, and that was only due to the fact that both pirates and thugs lost many of their own to my approach. And now the last of the bounty hunters remains. A middle-aged man with gray eyes and dirty brown hair that was barely visible because of the darkness. The lighting provided by street lamps was clearly not enough. And who are you? He grinned, placing his right hand on the katana. Apparently, he slaughtered a considerable part of the pirates. A strong jonin, judging by his sense of darkness. An ordinary traveler, I grinned, materializing a scythe. It glowed black, making it almost invisible against the background of the night. What an interesting chakra. You will be a good opponent. The man pulled out a katana and then took a fighting stance. A moment, and we find ourselves nearby, waving our weapons. He's too fast. I jumped to the side, hoping to close the distance, but he reacted instantly and rushed after me. A swing of the katana, and now there is a deep cut on my cheek. He almost hurt my eyes. Manifestation of darkness, I finally broke the distance and whispered the words of activation. A huge wave moved towards the enemy, drying up everything in its path. The man almost dodged, but only his left hand was grazed. Phew, he's screwed. It's time to finish with you, he said, cutting off his hand with a sharp blow of the katana, after which he jerked himself within striking distance of the sword. I dodged the horizontal swing of the katana. It's a deception strike. A diagonal cutting blow instantly deprives me of vision, and with the next blow the man cuts off my head. Having woken up from the vision, I crouched sharply, dodging the deceptive maneuver, after which I blocked the real blow with a wave of my scythe. There was surprise in the killer's eyes. Apparently, he had demonstrated some kind of martial art. Taking advantage of his hesitation, I managed to touch his wrist while he jumped away. The paralyzing seal instantly twisted him, and I hastily cast absorption. And while I was looking at how his body was drying up, a thought crept into my head, making me understand that by stupidity I had become like the canon Naruto. Instead of stupidly absorbing such masters, he could have made them his servants. Of course, you can't do without a ton of restrictive seals and bookmarks, but what prospects? The future Kenjutsu teacher is a completely loyal, controlled person, and also a jonin. Okay, let's stop the process of self-flagellation. Time to go to Mabui. Mabui was waiting for me. Looking at my torn, blood-stained clothes, she also glanced at my wounds. The wounds were not dangerous, so I endured. Why? What are you talking about? Why did you kill them all? Because I had to. I don't feel sorry for them, they are just animals who have been engaged in robbery and murder all their lives. Mabui only closed her eyes for a moment at these words. I don't understand why she is worried about pirates. This is stupid. Have you thought that they might have a family? Those who are waiting for them? They knew what they were getting into. They came to this island, I killed them. They didn't come here to help the residents. Yes, to these residents. Tatsuya-sama, do you have even a little bit of humanity? Do you know what you're turning into? You are becoming a ruthless monster, Tatsuya. Mabui pressed herself against the wall, looking in horror at the scythe blade that stopped at her neck. It's not for you to judge me. You destroyed my clan, killed my relatives. Don't deny that you were there, Mabui. After all, it was from Uzushio that you went to the land of tea. Then kill me. Mabui switched to you again, not even surprised that I knew everything. How did I know everything? Digging under the cloud, Shijo came across interesting information that shinobi who arrived from the devastated country of the Whirlpool were hired as bodyguards for the traitor feudal lord. Add up the available information and it becomes clear that Mabui also participated in the attack. Well, apparently, it was something like support, or more precisely, they simply showed the youngsters the entire depth of that abyss called war. You can't even imagine how much I want to do this now. But, as sad as it is to realize, I need you. Whether you will serve voluntarily or become my weak-willed puppet is your choice. She just gritted her teeth and fixed me with a hateful gaze. I just grinned, although in my heart I felt lousy. I'm not doing all this for myself. I just want to restore my clan, and for this I need to be strong. Who pities these new parasites of society? Let them at least be useful. Mabui sat at the other end of the bed and watched carefully as I bandaged the wounds. Oddly enough, I didn't hold a grudge against the girl. She does not have a gamer's mind and, in fact, has never killed. Mabui rose to her rank through training in difficult reconnaissance missions, not through assassination. Because of this, she cannot take the death of so many people calmly. Minus how much? The white-haired girl suddenly spoke up, tearing me away from my thoughts. I just grinned and then said, "That's it. Is that all?" At the other end of the island, I found a huge pit with hundreds of dead real inhabitants. They don't deserve to live, Mabui. And if you feel sorry for them, then just think about who they killed. Old people, children, even babies, they were all killed. All residents of the city are dead people, whose appearance was taken by bounty hunters. Mabui nodded, although it was clear that she did not quite accept my point of view. Minus help? She asked after a minute of silence, looking at how I could barely reach the cut on my back and, accordingly, I couldn't bandage it properly. This threatened to open other wounds. That would be nice, I agreed, after which Mabui quickly appeared behind me. She carefully bandaged the wound, first disinfecting it with local alcohol. An hour later, my carcass, more like a mummy, successfully settled into bed. I simply ignored a bunch of notifications. I had a good rest.